And we're live.
What a wonderful way to start.
We were just talking in the green room, and this is going to be a fun show. I can already tell.
This is going to be a good one, everybody. Hello, I am one of your hosts, Noir. Go by he, they. And this is your other host,
Anita. My pronouns are she, they, and this is Morning Ritual, our TTRPG talk show. And we've got an incredible guest today. Eric, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
My name's Eric Campbell. I'm at 16-bit Eric across all the social medias, including Steam and whatnot. So if you see me behaving badly on like Halo Infinite, definitely smack me for that. I run games on Q Times. I used to be the director of development at Geek and Sundry, where I did a lot of my production with tabletop RPG as like an alternate to Critical Role. And now I am the GM of me and Sam DeLev's little company called Streampunks. And we run Change of the Dreaming Monday nights right now. Ooh. Hi, everybody. Yeah.
I've just recently left a Changeling the Dreaming 20th game, and that's a fun system.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is about the World of Darkness games, but they always elude me. Like I've only played it like 2, but I love it, but like I never get into those games.
Yeah. I'm so desperate to get into like a vampire game. And we've, B-Dave's been nice enough to run a few for us because B-Dave juggles like 50 plates. But yeah, it's the same with me. And like B-Dave, I'm a classic World of Darkness fan. So I love Mage the Ascension and all of the games that have come out that have yet to be published by the new V5 systems and Paradox White Wolf. So yeah, I'm with you.
I found out they have a werewolf system, and I lost my flipping mind.
They have 2 of them. Yeah, there's
2.
Yeah, so there's the original Werewolf the Apocalypse, which is what came out in the late 90s, early 2000s. They wrapped that up with Vampire the Masquerade. And then Onyx Path Publishing, which was a new publishing company that because White Wolf has a very sad story, or at least it did before it came back. But White Wolf has a very sad story of just being gobbled up by corporate interest and then dismantled, and it's really sad. So like all of this great RPG stuff, White Wolf was the one company that was actually contending, and at some point actually outsold Wizard. It wasn't Wizards back then, but like D&D at the time, because Vampire was becoming so big. And so Werewolf the Apocalypse wraps up along with Vampire the Masquerade and Change of the Dreaming and Wraith the Oblivion and all this other stuff. And they decided to reboot the World of Darkness, and they came out with new versions of it. They decided to start from scratch and be fresh with it. So they came out with Vampire the Requiem, and then they came out with Werewolf the Forsaken, which is actually between the two is my favorite. And then they did from Mage the Ascension, they did Mage the Awakening, and then Changeling the Dreaming became Changeling the Lost, which I could talk forever about that game, because that game is so interesting and relevant to our time right now. It's really fascinating. So if you ever want to check it out, Onyx Path has got some really great original stuff. They have a totally different system. Yeah.
Are they all compatible? Oh, hey, what's up, Onyx?
Oh, in chat? I swear I'm not hawking their product because they're in chat. They're not compatible per se. They use different systems. Like Changeling 20, all the 20th anniversary systems use like an updated version of the classic storyteller system, which was used back in the day. And then Onyx Path changed their branding from World of Darkness to Chronicles of Darkness, which they had to do because Paradox White Wolf was like, this is ours now. So Chronicles of Darkness is stuff like Werewolf the Forsaken and Changeling the Lost and all of that stuff. And it uses a variation of the same system. And then V5 is its own thing altogether. So,
So like you couldn't take a character from like the Werewolf game and then introduce it to like your Changeling game?
You could. They introduced a conversion on Drive-Thru-RPG where if you wanted to take your characters from Chronicles, you could convert it. And vice versa, I think. Yeah.
That's so cool.
Chronicles did something that the old school Chronicles of Darkness does something that the old school World of Darkness stuff didn't do, which was they made it possible, because in the old school World of Darkness, nobody liked each other. Like changelings and vampires and werewolves especially hated each other, and they kind of just were like enemies of each other. Whereas like Chronicles of Darkness, they just left the door open. So if you want to have your Avengers Assemble group, you can do it.
Yes.
You have a changeling and a geist, which is my favorite, and then you could have a werewolf and a vampire. And I'm like, you put together your own CW show if you want.
That's exactly what I was thinking. Get out of my brain.
Yeah.
Oh no, that is so freaking cool. Like
yes.
I just love the world of darkness so much. Like that's my favorite genre. It's not exactly fantasy. It's like modern fantasy almost. Like
Changeling is so good too. Like it also feels also like Changeling at this point is like peak millennial culture too, because it's like it's fighting against like trying to do what you love when the world and capitalism and everything is trying to destroy you to your very core.
Yeah, it's
the
amazing.
Fight between banality and glamour is just
yes. It's both Changeling the Lost and Changeling the Dreaming are profoundly relevant to our current state. It's really fascinating. Changeling the Dreaming, I would not try Changeling the Lost. I kept putting it off. I kept saying, no, I'm not gonna, because I'm so passionate and deeply, Changeling the Dreaming is a deeply personal game to me because of its message and whatnot. And I refused to try Changeling the Lost. And then Sam DeLev was like, no, you need to read this because I think you need to give this a chance. And I was like, all right, fine. So, that was kind of a game changer because Lost is something I never gave any credence to, and that game is brilliantly, courageously written. And it was one of the first books, and I could be wrong about this, but it was also one of the first books that I ever read in the TTRPG space that had trans creators writing for it as well, which I was like, okay, good to see that. Like, why is it taking this long? but Onyx Path was like they really do a great job of putting together good creative teams for their Kickstarters and books. So it's a great. I could talk forever about Changing the Lost. That's just a great, unique, different game from Changing the Dreaming. It has a different theme. It's really interesting.
Shout out to Onyx Path, and also like this is one more stitch of evidence in my theory that no one can say no to Sam.
It's true. It's so true. My goodness.
We've nicknamed Sam Thanos.
Thanos? Oh no. That's gonna go straight to their head if it hasn't already.
It did.
Oh no. Oh no.
It's gonna turn half the world gay.
That's brilliant. I'm not gonna let that go. I'm gonna say that to them all the time now. That's so good.
They are going to snap and turn half of the TTRPG space gay,
yeah.
And I love it. I love this for them.
So I'm kind of curious to hear more about Stringpunk because I haven't followed this too closely. So how new is this? How long have you been doing this?
So when Geek and Sundry choked to death, and just kind of faded off. I like when people ask me what happened to Geek and Sundry, I'm usually like, when Marty's disappearing in the photograph and Back to the Future. That's GNS. It just didn't. Like nobody saved it at the Under the Sea dance. It just kind of vanished. Even though it's still there. Although, real quick sidebar shout out, Nerdist did a great job of creating a new website and put all of our old articles up at the website, which was really cool.
Yeah,
so I appreciate the hell out of that. That was really cool of them. But what I was going to say is after GNS, a lot of us GNS alumni were not sure what was coming next, because at the time there really wasn't another studio like G4 or anything like that, or anybody like Pixel Circus that was doing their stuff that had like any kind of momentum. If you weren't Critical Role, like, what were you going to do? Were you going to continue the TTRPG thing? They were saving Throw and other people who've been doing this forever. And we were like, well, we didn't want to stop playing together because a lot of us, the core group, had so many positive experiences gaming together. We did Doctor Who, and then we did Star Trek, of course, and then we'd done our own sort of like our own sort of queer cyberpunk superhero with Callisto 6.
It's a Cypher System, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah. And so we were kind of asking ourselves, well, what do we want to do? Do we want to keep gaming together? And the answer was yes. So Sam, specifically, it started off originally as me and Sam DeLev. And now, even though She's more interested in executive producing. She's absolutely part of the leadership, but it's me, Sam Delev, and Eliza Pearl, and the three of us who were on all of our shows together back in GNS just decided to keep making RPG stuff. So we at the time I was running my own Patreon to keep myself afloat, because it's kind of a weird thing, but when I left GNS, my skill set was so niche that it was like, how the hell am I? Like, I produce TTRPG content. Like, who's hiring me? So I reached out to like a bunch of publishers to see if maybe they would be interested in hiring me, and everyone was like, "No, we're just going to do it in house." And I was like, "Okay, well then I should do this. I should do it in house too then." So when we put together the whole thing, it was all under the pretense of just like, we didn't want to stop. We didn't want what we were doing at GNS to stop just because we didn't have GNS's platform or audience access or anything like that anymore. So we formed Streampunks. Sam Delev came up with the name.
Good name too.
Yeah. So, and we started Clear Skies, which is sort of our re-entry into Star Trek adventures, which it was kind of our big grand experiment to see if we could do this and produce this on our own and how we would do it. And it's been made possible because we have so many names for our fans and audience members, but in the GNS days, we called them Aux Crew or Super Punks based off of our show. They call themselves that. And
it's always great when they give themselves a nickname.
It's great.
Aux Crew was my favorite because like there's actually like the Aux Crew roster, if I remember correctly. Like,
yeah, it was beloved. Yeah. So Aux Crew is kind of what that has been the one through line. Like, we've always called our fans Aux Crew, even though it's changed a little bit. Like, we're running Changing the Dreaming right now, and just sort of like piggybacking off of the clever nickname Family that Vampire used.
Yeah.
Our friend librarian Liz came up with the name Famely. So it's FAMFAE, Famely. And so that's what the fans of our Changing the Dreaming show call themselves now, which is great.
I love it so much.
It's funny when you mention librarian Liz, they said in chat, and then we bullied Streampunks into making a company.
Yeah, it's great. It's so lovely because every time I get a chance to do, like, anytime I'm fortunate enough to get asked to come do shows like this, our core group shows up to just like cheer us on, and it's just the most wonderful thing, and I love it. So it's great that they're in chat. But yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry. I was just gonna say, you guys have always had a solid community. I'm gonna embarrass my co-host here, but they are a huge Geek and Sundry fan, and like, I know, right? So they're basically they've taken me through the history of Geek and Sundry, and they still follow you all through all the stuff that you do now. So it's just like,
yay, that's great.
Yeah. Because Critical Role and, well, more specifically, Shield of Tomorrow got me into GMing Star Trek and, like, playing in a Star Trek game with my friends, which eventually led to me starting up a show here on the channel called The Lost Frontier.
That's so cool.
Yeah. It's...
That's awesome. I'm
just gonna go sink into my hoodie now. I'll be back.
No, what's the name of your ship? What I'm curious about. What's
the USS Solstice.
Oh, that's good. What class is it? Is it a science ship?
It is a Nova class vessel currently.
It's a science vessel. Oh wait, no, it doesn't necessarily have to be a science vessel. It's Nova class.
So they were sent off to an anomaly that appeared in the Typhon Expanse that might be causing spatial and temporal anomalies specifically. So when they went through the rift, it kind of changed them to a Constitution class.
Oh, that's so cool. So are they? Is it an OS series?
So we're playing TNG era currently, but they were chasing down a rowdy captain. I
got to play the bad guy.
And they might also have an AI on their ship that is hyper advanced, that is currently also causing chaos and might have altered the timeline a significant amount.
Oh, that's awesome. I miss Star Trek so much. Here's a fun fact that I've said this a couple of times, but a lot of people don't know is that Marisha was supposed to be a recurring guest star on Shield of Tomorrow. We had created her character and everything, and I was building a storyline for her to appear. And Marisha Ray was going to come in and just like she was going to be sort of a foiled character, very much in the same vein as like Eddington or somebody like that. But she wanted to play, she wasn't that knowledgeable about Trek lore. And I was like, so where's half the cast? So you're in great shape. Come on in. And she was like, she created a character that was going to be a genetically engineered, like genetically modified, like the controversial, illegal, genetically engineered scientist that was working for the Romulans. And we had this whole thing planned out, but it just never manifested. She got a job at GameStop. And then she took on the role of creative director at Geek and Sundry. So between that and Critical Role, like she was juggling way too many plates. Yeah.
It was just the thought of like, the alternate future that could have been, but GameStop.
Yeah, it's so funny. She was like, yeah, I got a job at GameStop. I'm gonna say yes to this, and I'm gonna try to pitch Geek and Sundry stuff on their channels. And I was like, do it. Me and Sean were like, yeah, do it. No, do the thing.
Oh man, it's just, okay. So we kind of touched on this conversation briefly in the green room, but it's just like, I feel like there's so much that happened maybe like 5 or 6 years ago that was just a little too ahead of its time.
It was a little too ahead.
If it happened right now, it would be wild. Like you mentioned Elisa Pearl, and I have the pleasure of playing a game with them, and they're amazing. And we talked with Sam, and Sam kind of took us through like, everybody at Geek and Sundry kind of had like a vibe check on each other, and that's if you didn't pass the vibe, then you were ousted, which is amazing, because I haven't met a single Geek and Sundry person that has been a dick. Like, I'm just gonna put it out there. It's just, y'all were all so creative and stuff. It's just like, I feel like if that happened right now, it would be a much different story, and it's kind of upsetting. It's the same feeling I have with College Humor. It's just like, God,
it was such a bright star. Yeah, I completely agree. It was always an uphill battle. We were always doing the best we could with what we had at GNS. I was part of I call us the second generation crew, because right when I came in is when Felicia had decided to step back and have a kid. And then the old school crew decided to go their separate ways as well. And so we came in, and that was just such a tumultuous time. And we were, because it was during the launch of Alpha, which is no secret, did not go over well with the community. Everyone saw that coming, including us. And we kind of inherited what was going to happen, whether we liked it or not. Like, we were coming into this, and that was rough, because the community wanted to be angry at somebody. So we were suddenly the new kids, and Alpha was launching. So like, it got so bad that I even had to step back from very positive communities like Team Human. I had to step back because people were being very not nice. And I was like, really, it was kind of throwing us off a little bit, because we were like, well, what do we do? Like, we were so excited to become a part of this, and it feels like someone just handed us a trash fire. Like, what are we going to do? And the solution was, and thank God we did this, because we saw how this went with some, other unnamed geek companies at the time that decided to take to the internet and be like, hey guys, I know we're not the people that were once here, but we're really sorry, but we are geeks, and we promise you'll love our content. Like, that has never gone on well. We sat down and have a conversation about what we were going to do, and Marisha and Sean and I were just like, let's not say a word, and let's just start making stuff. And if they respond, great. And if the audience rejects it, then we'll burn. And that's exactly what should happen to us.
Just
if that's
let our work speak for itself.
Yeah. So the first thing we did was we created Dread, and
A+ show.
Yeah, Dread, in my opinion, was one of our finest hours at GNS. And we, thanks to having Marisha on our team, we had a lot of weight behind us when we were like, hey, we have a wacky idea. we want to do this thing. And they were like, explain that to us. And we're like, yeah. So Jenga, and because we'd had such a positive response on International Tabletop Day, because we'd had a small version of Dread happening, but Dread got filmed. They went, we did the whole thing. And when it went up, it was everyone slammed the brakes on hating us, and we're like, oh. That
show had like A+ production value, and like it definitely is one of those shows that still holds up today because it was something that was very innovative for the time that it was created.
Yes.
The Sagas of Sundry.
Oh, Darren, I love that show so much. My personal favorite is, I feel like I'm in no way talking smack about season 2. For me, season 1 was peak, because season 1 of Dread, I feel like, struck the exact perfect balance between game and show. And it was really thrilling to watch role play and like the game play out. Whereas like season 2 was very movie production level. Like it got really produced, and it's its own coolness. But yeah, from that, we just started getting like, okay, show us what you can do. And the community responded, and we kept coming out with all the stuff. And yeah, I feel like if we could transplant that from 5 years ago to today, it would have a much different response. Yeah. I don't know how much, I am curious about what the dynamic would be with CR and us, regards to like, because the thing is that people did show up for CR, and then they would come check out Gather Your Party, you know? And that was great. Like CR was a great gateway for a lot of people. But for the most part, what was interesting is most people who just came for CR really didn't try anything else. They kind of stuck with just CR, and they didn't really see what else we were doing on the channel.
I guess it makes sense, but yeah, I have my own thoughts.
I will say that you are fully responsible, and I straight up stole the idea from TTRPG for a show that I had on my channel called System Crash, where we would just do a random RPG off my shelf, and we'd just play it as a one shot.
Oh man, I salute you. I couldn't.
I could not.
Ivan was doing a show called Foreververse at the time that was on during sort of an odd time slot that some of the local people here in the US were missing on. But Foreververse was it was Quantum Leap meets TTRPG, and he was running a game where his cast was constantly leaping from universe to universe. So they would play Seventh Sea, and then they would play Paranoia, and then they would play, like, they would just jump RPGs. And Ivan has the brain to process rule systems like this. And I have ADHD. There's no realm or reality where that is ever going to happen for me. And so I was blessed in that in TTRPG, they loved Doctor Who so much that the audience was like, please don't change. And we were like, oh, okay. So it became Eric's TTRPG, and it had nothing to, like, the format was that we were going to jump game systems like Ivan was doing, but it never manifested.
Yeah.
It just was, yeah. So,
oh man, you brought up something a bit ago where it's just like, being like the second generation on a property that, like, had a beloved cast. And I mean, the more I think about it, the more I'm like, yeah, you're right. That is something that has happened to so many online mainstays, and I feel like the common through line is that the companies panic and don't give the new generation the time that they need to grow. Like,
yeah, I mean, that's certainly my experience has been from watching it happen and then being a part of a big studio. It's been that my experience has been, and I'm kind of speaking like about the entire landscape. But and this is another reason why I'm very curiously watching G4. And let me just pause for a second and sidebar and just say I'm grateful as hell for G4, because they're employing almost everyone that I worked with at GNS at this point. Like, all of our production people are all at G4 now. They gave B-Dave a show, which was the right thing to do. There's a lot of great things going on over there. But why I curiously watch it is because what I have noticed is that typically the people that can fund these big studios are coming from places like, in our case, it was Legendary Films. Even though we didn't have anything to do with Legendary Films, there was this sort of weird thing where people thought that somehow we were privy to Legendary's money, and I was like, oh, that's great, that's funny. Like, because there's almost no money to bank in this kind of content. Right. There's just, when you think about it, like, Legendary just made like hundreds of millions off of Warcraft in China, even though it did terrible in the United States and everywhere else like that. And they're dealing with mix-ups of like funding huge movies and seeing how they grow and making millions and millions and millions of dollars off of movie deals and stuff like that. They don't really give a damn about what's going on in a digital division somewhere else, right? I don't imagine they did. I don't have any inside information on that, but like, there was no contact hardly ever. Right. But what the point to this is that what I have noticed is that when the web series craze hit after the success of the Guild, and people were trying to get more and more involved and ahead of the curve to see what the internet was capable of with regards to media, because I'm so old school that I still call it new media. Nobody calls it that anymore. It's all digital media now. But Geek and Sundry came up during the time where people were finally saying, hey, what can we do with this? And they found their answer, which is create our own streaming service and do whatever we want and pay subscription fees. And bam, you get advertisers and subscription and you make a ton of money. So we can do whatever we want. When GNS was coming about in that era, there was a lot of things that were very unique that nobody else is going to be able to recreate ever. Like Critical Role is lightning in a bottle. It will never happen again. No. I firmly believe that, because Critical Role started when Twitch was pretty new. They had front page for 6 months. It was a bunch of brilliant voiceover actors and close friends that were just addictive as hell to watch. And they had just introduced the world to a game that had only come out like a year and a half before, called D&D 5e. And so it was just like,
it was everything storm of like, it was the perfect
storm.
There's no way to replicate it.
Yeah. And that's Zach Eubank and Felicia Day just going like, hey, you want to come? Zach Eubank saying, hey, here's a show that we could do. And Felicia saying, yeah, let's approach them. And then they're going and the rest is history.
Yeah.
So it's weird, but
it's wild to me to think 6 months on the front page is unheard of. No one will ever get that again.
That will never happen again.
No one has ever had it before, and no one will have it since.
No one will have that. No one gets to live on Twitch front page for 6 months. That's absurd. Like, but back in the day, Twitch was trying to figure out what their own platform was. You know, they were trying to figure out who they were, and there was nothing like CR. Mm-mm. So it was great. And but what you're saying is true. Like, if we had just been transplanted, I would love to see what would happen, but I have a feeling that ultimately the same outcome would take place. I have a feeling that ultimately that, because the cost of running a studio like that, there was no way. Like, yeah.
See, I just look back on stuff like that and I'm like, you guys existed without Patreon. I mean, I know that's like a simple thing, but like, that is a whole, like, I think you guys existed in a point in time where it was just like, how do we monetize this? And then like,
I'm curious if anybody ever came up with the answer to that. Like, that's why I'm watching G4. I'm like, how are you guys pulling this off? Because the production value, the studio space, the people you've got on that show, I don't know anything. I only look at that from the audience point of view with my experience and go, this is costing a penny. How are they making that back? And one of the things that I think of is like, well, they're also on TV though. So that's something really smart that we didn't have.
They're getting ad revenue.
Yeah. So I'm curious of how it goes, but like,
yeah, I mean, I'm rooting for it because I if G4 does well, then that hopefully inspires the next one.
I keep telling. I was actually just having breakfast with Taliesin the other day, and he and I were talking about the studios and like, you know, Critical Role being so unique because of how it was created and how it's able to sustain itself, and how fortunate we are to have like a an indie geek studio of that scale producing content is really good for the rest of the space in many regards. But we were having a conversation about how, like, I was just saying, man, if I just won, this is what everyone says, but I was like, man, if I just won the lottery, swear to God, I would live modestly. I'd buy myself like a small house if I could pull that off. And I swear to God, I would just be like, I'm going to set aside $15 million to just throw into a trash can and say, hey, everybody who's a geek that I've been associating with, I'm going to start a studio. I'm going to pay everybody just for the next 5 years. Let's just go make stuff until it burns down. like I swear to God, I would do it in a heartbeat.
Oh my God. I feel that so hard. And like one of the things that you brought up is like there will never be another Critical Role. I absolutely agree. I think, however, that there will never be another Critical Role for all the reasons you said, and also like there's already a Critical Role. Like I don't think the world can handle any more Critical Role than what they can give. But I do think I think things like Dimension 20 are showing like we want more actual plays that try to live in their own identity rather than trying to be Critical Role. So like I like every time somebody takes a swing at actual plays, like I'm always like, if in your heart you're trying to be Critical Role, I know this is going to fail.
Yeah. It's true, but like D20 has been they have done such a good job innovating the space and like getting their own identity within like the TTRPG space. And shows. Hyper RPG is sort of like the eclectic experimental, in my opinion. Like when I think of channels that have tried to really innovate the TTRPG space and just throw paint at the canvas and see what the hell of a picture they can make, I always think of Hyper and what they're doing. But Dimension 20, because there's so many great studios out there that have been doing stuff for ages. And like the one that I always point at is who I feel like never gets enough, because they were one of the first, is Saving Throw. And they're just like a tiny little studio that has just never given up. And they've been doing this for ages, and they have managed to survive in the space through fan support. But both they and like D20, everyone from like second tier, if you want to say anything below Critical Role, is like Dimension 20 and D&D Beyond and all this other stuff. I've noticed that none of them are trying to be Critical Role. They're just making shows, and I think that's the way to do it. So
yeah, I've been a part of so many productions where at the heart of it you can tell that like they're trying to be Critical Role.
People fall into that trap, yeah,
and then those never last. And you're right, there are so many, like Dungeon Run. Dungeon Run is also killing it.
Yeah,
it's just like there's just. Yeah. Was Dungeon Run a geek in such a thing?
No, Dungeon Run was never on. Dungeon Run came out towards when my time at GNS was coming to an end, is when Dungeon Run started up.
Okay. But yeah, there's so many studios that are just really doing their own thing that is just kind of amazing to see. And I just wish there was more investment in this space.
I wish there was more. For there's no other way to say this. I wish there was more money in the space.
Yes,
because for anybody who's following us or following you guys or following anybody, as somebody who has experience trying to get sponsorships through publishers and who has relationships with publishers, it's very rare to get sponsorship through publishers because they don't have money. They just don't. It's super hard. You usually have to go to like dice makers and people who are actually have a steady income of money for their company that they can promote. Or, Demiplane is doing a lot of really great stuff. I'm so excited about Demi. Fair warning. I am producing for Demiplane, so everyone I'm going to say that. But I'm thrilled about Demiplane because the two big reasons why I point at that as a great community supporter is that they're making good content, they're hiring really good people, but the big thing is that I feel like D&D Beyond has brought so much accessibility to D&D, and that hasn't existed for all of these other brilliant games that are just not getting as much spotlight time as D&D does. And I feel like, oh my God, we have a platform that's in development right now that is going to finally do that, because it's already got Pathfinder, of course.
And you got Adam Bradford behind it, the brain behind D&D Beyond. So it's just like
I've only just been introduced to Adam, and I am so impressed with that dude. He is such a quality person, and I'm really impressed with he came very highly recommended by some very respectable people. So I was like really excited that he asked me to come join the production team. So yeah.
Yeah, like I've only had the pleasure of playing with him twice, but the dude is amazing. And like, oh, he's really good. That's and like now we're getting that same accessibility for Pathfinder, the new Marvel game. Oh, like it's just so much stuff. It's just
I know. I'm eager. Anita, you and I, like, I'm waiting for them to release. I'm like, are they going to do it? Because they're doing Free League stuff, which is like my jam. And I'm like, are they going to do Star Trek Adventures on this platform? Are we going to get, because I'm eyeing it. So we'll see.
Talk to our friends over at Modifius and be like, hey.
I know.
Put it over here.
Tree. Yeah.
We'll forge that bond, not for any business reasons.
Yeah,
because we just wanted.
Yeah. Do this for me. Yeah. Oh,
okay. So there, we gave you fair warning. There are some questions that we ask all of our guests. And here's the first one. I'm bracing myself.
Yeah.
Okay, here we go. There is a war in the TTRPG community between people that think that dice are forbidden candies and people who believe that you should not, under any circumstances, put dice in your mouth. We have asked this of every guest that we have had on. We've asked Brennan, who was a coward and did not choose a side. We asked Bria, who works for a dice company. So Bria admitted that she makes dice as tantalizing as possible, so people chew with dice, so they have to buy more of them. Now, Eric, we need to know, what side of this war are you on? Are you on the stop the crunch side? Or are you on the crunch side of this war?
Oh, that. So crunchy versus non-crunchy RPGs?
So it's crunch. It's CRONCH. People that put dice in their mouth, they call it crunch.
In your mouth and crunch it.
Oh, but this is basically an allusion to like lots of rules in a game. Is that right?
No.
Or am I just totally not processing?
Absolutely.
You mean literally not. Put dice in your mouth and eat them?
Yes, there are people that are doing that. I know it's hard to believe. It's disgusting.
Wait, this is literally happening? This is not a Florida story? This is actually like...
Yes, people put dice in their mouth.
Sometimes it's a sensory thing. For those who have,
don't make excuses for these people.
We listen. We had Mackenzie on. Mackenzie has a chew stim, and so silicone dice were suggested as a safe alternative.
Yeah.
In this age of COVID, I prefer not to put things in my mouth that have been handled.
Yes.
I'm like this. I am vehemently team no dice eat.
Yes.
Yeah.
No dice eat.
We've been told that edible dice are crunching, not crunching. Candy dice don't count.
I do know that there's like people out there that make candy dice that you can get, which I haven't tried yet, and I'm cool with that because it don't roll it and then eat it. But yeah, I would say that would be my thing.
Yeah. We tried to make peace with the crunchers and tell them, hey, there are edible dice, and they go, well, that's crunching dice. We want to crunch dice, which is to put non-edible dice in our mouths and eat them. So you can tell that we are dealing with unreasonable people.
No. That is the most unique question I've ever been asked, and the answer is hell no.
More shoddy. Outside the pandemic, it is still not fine because you still touch your dice and your hands are filthy.
That is correct.
Look, you see how they try to make excuses?
As the alien in oh my god, and the Flight of the Navigator would say, compliance. I completely agree.
We're not eating them no more. We're caressing them with your teeth.
Yeah. Does not belong in the. I mean, I can only imagine that's gonna end up as a doctor story. You hear all those terrible stories that doctors tell people about. Oh, you would not believe what we see in emergency rooms, and I just imagine like that's a bonding moment. Oh my god, there's probably a story there of like bonding over some fool that ate a bunch of dice. You play D&D? Let's see what you roll. Pull out the X-ray.
Oh, a 1. How fitting.
That means it's got to stand. I'm sorry.
The only crunch we support is rules crunch.
Yeah. Okay. That's me and Sam go back and forth about that, about the rules crunch versus rules crunch light. And we don't actually have a place where we live because we've played good games on both sides of that. So
yeah, I think Diana, Super Dylan, I think he made a chart for the crunchiness of rules. It goes from like crunchy to smooth, like peanut butter.
That's good. Yeah,
it was creamy. I think was the
creamy, crunchy or creamy.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Yeah, I like my Powered by the Apocalypse. I feel like that's like right in the middle, like right there. It's so good.
So good. I just ran my first PBTA game a few weeks ago.
Which one?
It was Monster of the Week, and it's only the second. No, it's only the third time I've ever played PBTA, and Sam and I have had long again. I reference Sam because Sam and I, that's who I have all my TTRPG conversations with is my partner there, but I am so impressed and amazed at how many publishing companies go out of their way to make a brand new system when their game would work so good on a PBTA system. I was so happy when Avatar did PBT, when the Avatar Legends came out as PBTA. I was like, that's brilliant. No one's going to get bogged down in a heavy martial arts simulationist system. They're going to just unleash their imagination, roll 2d6s and play in the PBTA space. It's going to be brilliant. I haven't got a chance to play it yet though. I own it. I haven't got a chance to play it.
As someone who's run, we've both run a lot of it because we worked for Magpie as part of their curated play program. Good system. The way that they've done the classes is just perfect because it's based on the archetypes that you'll see in the show. So you'll have the Bold, who's basically like your Toph. You've got like
I'll never forgive them for not naming it the Boulder.
I'm curious, real quick. I'm super curious who your favorite Avatar characters are.
Okay.
Or what nation, like what kind of benders are the two of you and who's your favorite character? I know this isn't me interview, but I would love to know.
Oh no, feel free to ask questions. This makes it more fun. Air Nation.
Right on.
My favorite, I gotta go with Korra.
That's a solid pick.
Korra's a solid
pick.
Mm-hmm.
It's very funny. I used to be very much on the Korra sucks bandwagon.
Mm-hmm.
Then I actually took the time to watch it and rewatch it, and I don't see how anybody can. There's this argument online, who would win in a fight, Korra or Aang. I don't know how anybody can watch these two shows and go, Aang would win. There's no chance. No chance.
Aang's a pacifist and would not fight to begin with, so...
Right.
Aang
would be doing a lot of running. That's what he did, bless his heart. That's what he did.
So my favorite characters on the show are actually non-benders. I like Sokka and I like Asami, because I like the idea that in a world where, magic and mystical creatures and incredible feats of, just what could only be described as just mystical art could occur, that these people just train themselves to be the height of human perfection anyways.
Mm-hmm. Or in the case of Sokka is just I love that we see character growth and arc and swordsmanship training and stuff like that in Sokka. But I mean, what I love about Sokka is just we all wanted to believe that we were these badass benders, but we were all Sokka. We were 100% Sokka in that show. Yeah.
Yeah, in this game you can definitely play as non-benders. So you can play with like a technology background if you wanted to. So you could bake an Asami type character or martial arts.
Or weapon master.
Or yeah.
I would love at some point to talk to you guys to get a good explanation, because what I'm trying to wrap my head around is the balance and center. Like that one's confused me a little bit. I would love to get an explanation from you guys at some point. I would love to talk to y'all about the game because I'm trying to wrap my head around it.
So that is it's taken me a while to like really gel with that, because we were running a lot of like one shots or maybe even two shots. And that is a mechanic that's specifically for
campaign play,
a long-term campaign.
Okay.
So like what?
Good to know.
Yeah, and what it is, it's really a cool feature. So it's essentially like, if I were to explain it like D&D, you have your base stats, your strength, your dex con, all that good stuff. But in moments of like character growth and moments of like need, you can use your principles rather than your stats.
Okay, so that's what the bonuses come in there. Okay.
And so when you do that, that also makes you vulnerable as well, because you're kind of exposing what you believe in. And so foes can take advantage of that by calling you out on your principles.
Oh, that's very TV show. Yeah, that's really cool.
Right. And so like you can end up manipulating each other's principles and what they believe. And if you go like, so what I love about this, and I'm sorry for just kind of ragging, but I did a lot of work to like really understand this. You can go too far on your principles. Like if I believe in freedom and I'm using freedom instead of my base stats, I can go too far. Like I now believe everybody should be free at the detriment of all reason and sin.
Think about it like Jet in that first episode of the TV series.
Okay.
Yeah. And when that happens, like my character shuts down essentially, or my party has to reel me back in, which is an adventure all in of itself.
So for a good example in the narrative of the show is when they push Azula to her limits at the very end of the series. Eventually she breaks.
Yeah.
And you get taken out of the narrative at a certain point until you can like find a way to like reincorporate yourself.
Cool. Yeah.
Cool.
What's really cool about the Avatar system, and this is the last like that I'll be hyping it up until Magpie pays me again. No, I'm just kidding. Is that there's optional crunch, which is so it's by default a very creamy system, but you know, and there's not like a fireball or a water whip move per se, but you can make a water whip move, and then they give you a number of status ailments and benefits, and you can create new moves that characters can learn. And that is a tool that GMs have. So yeah, very cool system.
Very cool. I love that. That's so good.
I guess also to put it in, even put it in like a different systems terms, your balance is very similar to your, hi, I love you, you're beautiful, but please stop yelling at me. There's a cat down here. Star Trek Adventures, your, what are they called? Your principles in Star Trek Adventures, where where
you spend determination points and use your
your values.
I know. Values, yeah.
Very similar.
Okay,
to that.
That makes sense. Yeah. All right, right on. There's a PBTA game called The Veil that I'm super interested in, and it's all cyberpunk. And what I love about it is it's really hard to find cyberpunk that doesn't fall into some really unfortunate tropes. And one of the things that I love about some of the cyberpunk stuff that's coming out right now is people are smashing through it, because cyberpunk really served its purpose in the 80s, but revisiting it now and some of the stuff that comes out with it's really unfortunate. Some of the edgelordy choices that are made with some of the narrative stuff. Yeah. And but there is some good cyberpunk that is still coming out. And what's really unique is to find cyberpunk that is not and I'll try not to get on a soapbox here, but what I have noticed is that when it comes to some of the edgelordy crap that comes out in media in general, disability is almost always thrown at the bottom of the pile of like things that they think they can get away with, like no one will care about. And cyberpunk, with all the cybernetics and everything like that, can fall into that pretty hard. But there's some good games out there, and one of the ones that I ran into was The Veil, which is this, I'd never heard of it before, but it's on drive-thru and it's PBTA, and it's really fascinating because it acknowledges all of this stuff and brings a very engaging environment for cyberpunk into the TTRPG space. And it doesn't abandon that gritty, dark, dystopian side. It just doesn't like run into the same problems a lot of old school thinking does with cyberpunk. It kind of updates it and brings it into the future. And I highly recommend, if you guys are into PBTA, that's a game that I'm checking out right now, and it's really cool.
I definitely have to give that a look.
The people that published and wrote The Veil are actually local to my area where I
no kidding.
Canada, yeah.
You ever see them, tell them like I'm still learning their game, but I'm super impressed with it. Really impressed.
And the way you feel about cyberpunk is how I feel about Lovecraftian horror. Like, it's just like,
oh man,
I want to love it, but
yeah, I have a story about that. We so when we wrapped Shield of Tomorrow, we were before we came up with Callisto 6. I was getting ready to develop a cosmic horror set in a certain time period sort of game. And at the time, believe it or not, in my ignorance, I actually did not know that much about the creator. Yeah. Only that he was like, I was falling into that unfortunate mindset of, oh, he's probably got problems, but he's a product of his time.
Oh no.
And so I was telling, we hadn't announced anything yet, and I was talking to like some of the cast, like, hey, would you be interested in playing this? And as I was in the office at GNS, and Eliza Pearl came up to me and was like, hey, can we chat? And I was like, sure, what's up? And she's like, let's go on a walk. And I was like, yeah, let's go on a walk. So we walked a couple of blocks around, and she's like, basically kind of laid it out. And I sat there going like, what? Like, okay. So like Eliza brought up some brilliant points. And when we walked back to the office, this was kind of, I was shocked because The Mountains of Madness is one of my all-time favorite horror stories. And I was like, this is an incident where I need to learn more about the creators. Like, I obviously need to know more about creators. So I went and Googled some stuff. Google is free, everybody.
Google is free.
If you're ever wondering why maybe some people kind of aren't very comfortable with Lovecraft and why others are, you should Google, and it'll reveal a lot. So yeah, we nixed it immediately, and I was like, yep, nope. And this is one of the things, and this is not me calling out Chaosium. I would never do that. But I also am going to point at the fact that it's really tricky for me to open up an RPG that exalts the creator that much. And it's difficult for me to ask people like Eliza to come play Call of Cthulhu with me when the first thing they see when they open that core book is that man's face. And like, and like, I'm just like, yeah, I Call of Cthulhu is one of the granddaddies of all RPGs, and I don't have any experience with Chaosium, but they publish good stuff, and from I can't speak to them at all, but I can only speak to the product of like, it's deeply uncomfortable to engage with that. So I totally know exactly what you're talking about, because I hate that it makes cosmic horror feel like, for a while at least, it made cosmic horror feel like, well, that's something I'm never going to play. But thankfully that's not true, because there's ways to engage, and you don't have to exalt the creator, and you don't have to whitewash it either. Like, there are ways to engage with it. But
yeah, I was a huge Lovecraft fan. Like, huge. Like, I had the shirt, I had my Cthulhu plushies and all that stuff. I also had somebody that kind of looked at me and was just like, hey, let's chat.
Yeah. Let's talk history.
And like, it broke my heart, because like I just love the idea that there are things out there that are so complex that even trying to perceive them will destroy you. Like, that it's just such It's good. It's good.
Yeah, my favorite thing about it is that, for me, the thing that absolutely attracts me to the whole genre is that its foundation is based on the fact that humanity is not as important as it thinks it is.
Exactly.
I love that. I love that. Star Trek is like a positive version of that, whereas like cosmic horror is like you are a speck in the food chain and your mind will break if you try to comprehend the vastness of the cosmic reality. And I love that because it's a lesson in humility. It's sort of sci-fi that's driving this narrative of like, we are so wrapped up in our absolute self-importance on this little blue stone in the middle of the cosmic vast ocean. And I love the idea of a fiction that challenges and scares us into remembering, not revealing, or like it's literally shaking you out of your complacency, as like Carl Sagan pointing out the little blue dot on the map kind of thing. I love that about cosmic horror.
Yeah, one of the things that's happened in nerddom that I love and appreciate, because I did love Lovecraft, and not loving Lovecraft's work was hard. There's been like a bit of a reclamation that's been going on. Totally. Lovecraft County, like when that came out, I lost my mind. And then like, Magic and Misfits with Abria, it kind of saying like, yo, we all loved what Harry Potter was, but also fuck JK. Like, yeah,
it's ours now.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I love that. It was the same with like, I see the same thing happening with Conan, because I love Conan the Barbarian.
Oh, no, it's Conan problem.
But well, I mean, so Conan the Barbarian is like, that is pretty historically. I mean, Howard and Lovecraft were besties. They were like, they wrote each other's fiction, and they like Howard was not. I mean, Howard was in. I don't even think in the same league as like, holy shit, dude, like take it down a notch. Lovecraft was. But yeah, Howard had his own stuff. Howard had his own problems. Howard is like, it is a historical document, as Sam would say. There's a lot of like depicting African tribalism, and there's a lot of like depicting Eastern and how women are depicted and stuff like that. But it was all part of this like the sort of toxic masculinity of like the early
machismo fantasy.
Yeah, but Conan has evolved dramatically, and the crowning achievement I find, if you ever get a chance, read Gail Simone's Conan the Barbarian Wonder Woman crossover is amazing. Okay. And it once again shows you that this stuff does not belong to the creators anymore. Like, yeah, you were part of it, but like when I think of cosmic horror, the thing that I like to remind people is that Lovecraft only wrote like 25% or 30% of whatever exists out there, and everything else has been claimed. And Peele is just another example of someone who's like, yeah, you did great. I mean, you're human trash, but I mean, no one's going to deny this is incredible. So it's mine now. I get to have it. Like, and I love that because it continues, just like all mythology on this planet. It continues to evolve the mythology, and I dig that. So,
and I think honestly, it's just because the dude has a cool name. Like, let's just keep it real.
You're probably not wrong, right?
It's just so Lovecraft is a dope word.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good point.
It's branding at this point. That's all it is.
Yeah, seriously. Yeah.
All right. So I got sorry. I hate that he's such a bad person with such a cool name.
I know.
But my next question that I always ask everybody here, which this is the question that people hate the most, which is if you could play any RPG with any 5 living people right now, what game you playing? Who's GM and who's at the table?
Ooh, I would want to GM it because I'm primarily a game master. Okay. That's how I mostly enjoy.
Are you a forever GM that's just accepted it at this point?
I used to be. I used to be, but I'm so desperate to play with friends that I'm just like, I'm at that stage now where I'm almost reaching out to people and being like, please ask me to be on your show. I just want to play. What game? That's so interesting because so often it's weird because when I was at GNS and we had celebrity D&D like a room away from us, and when we had like, when we've talked to people who play, like, you know what? Okay, I think I have an idea that helped me get to my thought. There's a lot of people out there that play RPGs that are in the celebrity space, like the cast of The Expanse plays D&D, and that would be amazing.
Oh my god, I would pay good money just to watch that.
Yeah. Oh man. So like, oh god, I'm blanking on her name. Dominic. She played one of the main characters in The Expanse. I'm blanking on names right now because I'm in RPG mode. Anyway, she played. Oh my god.
Naomi Nagata.
Naomi Nagata. Thank you. So this happened years ago, but like she took to the internet and was like, oh my god, I've discovered Dungeons and Dragons because the other cast members play, and she got introduced to it. And the vitriol she got from the D&D community, like we all know a lot of the positive side from it, but of course the ugly side showed up too. And she was like, yo, okay, no. And she has not spoken about it since. Like she completely disengaged. And even commented like, I'm so upset about that. Dominique Tripper, is that her name? I can't remember.
Yeah, Dominique Tipper.
Tipper, that's what it is. Yeah, I'm so sad about that. But when I think of like what celebrities I'd want to play with, I think of like the ones out there. If I can't think of any specific, but when I think of like Anthony Rapp, who discovered D&D, and now, my God, he's just bursting with love and can't stop talking about it. And Anthony is so accessible. He's like, yeah, if you guys ever want to play D&D, let me know. And I'm like, I was watching you on Adventures in Babysitting when I was a kid. Like, I cannot believe, like, everyone's like, oh my God, Rent. And I'm like, Adventures in Babysitting, are you kidding me? Like an American classic.
Hey, listen, it has Vincent D'Onofrio's Thor.
I know! Boy, that came full circle. It's so wild. Anyway, it's a difficult question for me to answer, but I think my first go-to is grab every celebrity that is sort of like not sure and run a D&D game for them. Like I want to grab, there's D&D players out there that are doing it, and I don't know who you are, but I would love to run a D&D game for you. We don't have to stream it or film it or anything. I want you to fall in love with RPGs.
Your plan is to convert Hollywood to a bunch of nerds, and I love it.
Yeah, because if I could do that, they'd become that much closer to understanding their fans. You know.
I'm sorry, I'm just imagining Anthony Rapp at the table with Vin Diesel, and it's the funniest thing in the world to me.
Oh yeah, yeah. Dude, we were talking right before we went live about how Tim Curry goes all in on his Muppet movie, The Treasure Island, and Anthony Rapp, like, it doesn't matter if it's a one shot or not. If you watch what he does, he goes 110% on all of his characters. He does not treat anything like it's just a side gig. He is just so 100% committed and loves.
I want to play with him so bad.
I'm here for it.
Yeah.
that would be, but yeah, and also Tim Curry just acted his whole ass off in that Muppet movie.
Yeah.
Listen, like 110 minutes of Tim Curry yelling at Muppets is my favorite thing in the world, and like I was in such a bad place when I started the movie, but I ended it in such a good wholesome place without the whole cultural appropriation Miss Piggy subplot.
Right.
We can just throw that whole part out.
My community is so sick of hearing this story by now. They have to be, but I'll keep this very brief. But my friend Duncan, who was on Eric's TTRPG, he was his dad is old school Jim Henson, and I learned about halfway through our friendship where he just kind of casually dropped that his dad was the principal puppeteer of Jabba the Hutt in Return of the Jedi, and he was Sir Didymus in Labyrinth, and was in like the Dark Crystal. He was old school Henson. I got to see some of the most wild things at his house. It was shot. Nothing as much as I thought like running into the original mold of, well, I shouldn't say because he wasn't supposed to have it, but like, let me say this, like he had Sprocket's head from Fraggle Rock, the UK production in his house. Walking into his garage, there was a face mold. There was just a random face on his wall. And I was like, what is that? It was the creepiest thing. And he's like, oh, that's David Bowie. Apparently they did a plaster mold of Bowie's face in Labyrinth, and his dad kept it when they were getting rid of all the stuff, and it's hanging on his wall. Bowie's eyes, like David Bowie's face is on his wall.
So,
and I was like,
it's a plaster mold too. You could make casts of Bowie's face.
Yes, it's Bowie's face from Labyrinth. And I was like,
okay. That is like the one of a kind item. Like,
I was like, Jesus Christ. Okay. Cool.
I love when people have done cool, like just amazingly cool shit in their life, but it's just so much a part of their life that they kind of have removed the holy shit factor from it.
Yeah, they're so casual about it.
They tell you these stories like, oh yeah, like, yeah, but you know, boop, boop, I did this incredible thing, and now here's
Duncan's cool. He's just chill as hell about it too. He's just like, oh yeah, that's a thing. And I was like, okay, cool.
I know we talked about Changeling earlier, but the fact that you can be so divorced from the wonder of the thing is just mind-boggling to me.
Yeah. He's just so, I don't know what his childhood was like, but like he is just the one of the funny things that he showed me when we walked into his house is there's a black and white photo. Again, I apologize to my community members who are here listening to this for like the 50th time. It's just a crazy cool story, but there was a week during the filming of Empire that Frank Oz was sick and his dad covered for him. So there is this picture of him puppeting Yoda on Mark Hamill's back, and it's signed, "Dear Dave, get off my back, love, Mark." And he's just got it hanging on his wall, and I was like, oh my God, your dad's a piece of history. Like, it's amazing. He just casually come and plays Doctor Who with us. Like, Duncan doesn't think anything of it.
See, when I hear stories like that, it's kind of like, it kind of makes me wonder, like, at any point during that production, did they realize, holy fuck, we're making Star Wars? Like, or is he just like, this is just a gig?
You see, what I'm curious about is I'm wondering, this might sound pompous, but I'm wondering if in like 15 or 20 years, if anyone is saying about any of us. Like, I'm wondering where, I always wonder where we're going to end up in the chapter of media, because there is a crowd of TTRPGers. We're just this small little subsect of crowd that is deeply passionate about creating community and storytelling. And it's remarkable that some of us can sustain what we're doing, but it's because the community is so passionate and loving towards this stuff. It makes me wonder, when the book is written on this era, I wonder if we're going to look back and be like, damn, that was good. Like, we got to be there for this, and that was such a good thing.
I mean, like, I feel like you would be a little bit closer to that, that thought experiment. Like, you were in Geek and Sundry, which is like that is a huge footnote in the TTRPG story, no matter how this pans out. Like, you can't talk about actual plays and TTRPGs in general and not mention GNS.
I thank you. I hope that's the case, because I hope like, not me specifically, but I hope GNS gets remembered for that, because the way how fast things move and how fast things have carried on, and like all the new studios that are popping up, there is, and because when people think back, to be honest with you, like, there are a lot of great folks like you, Anita, who was like really into stuff that was outside of it, and like y'all, tabletop the show, and there's a lot of great stuff, but whether we like it or not, a lot of it is completely overshadowed by CR, and there was just no way around that. A lot of that was just swallowed up, and so there is a part of me that looks back kind of wistfully, in that there's a lot of incredible things that GNS did. There was a lot of GNS felt like, I always used to joke about it when we were live, is I used to call GNS sort of the prairie home companion of the geek world, because all we would do is just go live and just mess around and run these games. And it was very community engaged. And with all the stuff that's coming up now, I feel like GNS is a little forgotten. I feel like it's a little swept into the winds of all this change in media stuff. So it's nice to hear, like, maybe if somebody writes the book, someone will point at it, but I don't know. Yeah,
I feel like there needs to be like almost a documentary made about like the history of this, because it's so intriguing and so interesting to know like how I know obviously know that there's probably things that people can't say about like the bigger swatches of it, but like it's so fascinating to me to see how it turned from like it influenced so many other things. Like honestly, I wouldn't have my channel if it wasn't for like wanting to stream TTRPGs.
Same.
And the whole Panera bread that's happening around us caused it. So we have to do these things online remotely, and it opens up all sorts of new different avenues. It's just so fascinating to see how it goes and to see where it will go from here.
Yeah. I know that CR has written their book, but and this is not, I'm not disparaging anything, but it's been my experience that typically the people that have the full story are not the ones that came out on top. I don't mean to sound negative at all. I'm not at all. Like CR has a brilliant story, and I encourage everyone to check out their book. But I would love, like, there's a part of me that feels like I'm positioned to do something. There's a part of me, I feel like there's other people that are really well positioned to do something with regards to telling the story, because I find the people that typically have the best viewpoint are the middle children of the world when it comes to this sort of thing. The folks that are sort of that came from the space and then landed in GNS and then never, I was never a part of CR, but GNS comes to an end and now I'm indie, and like there's a part of me that feels like someone, if it's not, I sound so arrogant saying it should be me, I should be writing this, but honestly, I feel like somebody in the space who's coming from that angle would tell a much more fuller picture of what it was like to observe and be a part of. And it doesn't have to be GNS either. Like Zach should write something over at Hyper, because he was the one that started this channel. Anyway, yeah.
Like I said, we should do instead of writing, just a documentary, because then you can get different perspectives and different angles.
That's probably the way to do
the hell out of that.
Yeah, that's probably the way to do it. Maybe someday somebody will do it.
Heck yeah! Like I have been an avid fan of like a bunch of communities that have imploded. Like I was a huge SourceFed fan, and like the second generation of SourceFed hosts came on and they were getting shit on, but like right when they found their footing and everything was starting to go well, boom. And the same thing happened with College Humor. And what I noticed is like it, from the moment of the implosion, like everybody spreads out, and there's like a period of like, I wonder what they're doing, and then inevitably they start popping up everywhere and like finding their footing. And like I think that's what I think. I've watched that happen with the SourceFed hosts. We've got the Valley folks now. A lot of them are writers for like John Oliver and Susie in a bunch of the late night shows. That's so great. And the same has happened with a few others, and I think I'm starting to see that with GNS. Like B Davis popping up. Like stream plugs. Like I truly believe something dumb is about to happen with stream plugs. Just because, like, after having talked with you and Sam, like, there's no way it doesn't. But and I've talked with Eliza, who is just a ball of charisma. It's just like there's no way that the seeds don't grow from that implosion. And so like I'm rooting for it, but it kind of feels inevitable. And like like
Thanos.
Yeah, we had a big victory moment. I don't know if y'all heard about this, but we had a big victory moment for Clear Skies last month when Star Trek Online. So we partnered up with So we partnered up with Star Trek Online back when we launched Clear Skies, and we partnered up with them, and they took our ship design. Thomas Maroney designed our ship and then put it in Star Trek Online because we'd had such a positive experience with them for Shield of Tomorrow. They've been our biggest supporter. And so we did this thing where they've put our NPCs from my game into their game, and they put our ship in
canon, man.
Yeah, it's so wild. And they put our ship in their game, which was so beautiful and shocking. And we thought we've peaked. And then Thomas Maroney contacted us and told us, like, hey, so at the end of season 1 of Picard, there was a big scene where a bunch of ships appeared and they all looked exactly the same because of budget or whatever. But they decided to branch out and ask license holders, can we borrow, we're going to use your ship designs. Which ones do you want us to use? They put the Ross, our ship, in front of Paramount and said, if you want to use this one, go ahead. And Paramount was like, oh yeah, we like this one. We're going to use it. Yeah. So Thomas Maroney contacted us and was like, by the way, your ship design that we designed for you it's going to be in Picard. And we were like, what? And they showed us the screenshots, and like everyone was freaking out. And I was just like, I was like, you remember that scene in Ghostbusters 2 where Ray is like too close to the painting and he just kind of just starts zoning out? That was me. I was totally like, so we've had little moments like that, but I am amazed at how many people outside of our space who have gone on to do big things like Erika Ishii is the one who I've watched a meteoric rise. Smokes. Like she's always just been this like a walking nuclear power plant of energy. And watching her ascend has been it's weird. It's gratifying on a level of like, so you guys, it's the same with Abria. Like we were like, Abria wasn't necessarily GNS family. Abria was, she was, but she wasn't like on our shows on a steady basis. Abria really, where I constantly saw her was Saving Throw. And Sam and everybody else around Abria was constantly being like, yo, Abria, like the world, hey. So we see these people ascend where like, yeah, you're finally catching on. Like, yes, this was the correct decision. It feels like an indie band that you've loved all your life is finally getting mainstreamed, and everyone's like, I love this band. And you're like, man, I knew these people back. You don't know. I was listening to this.
I knew the stream punks before they were
stream punks. Yeah.
See, but that's what I mean. Like it's happening. It's happening at such a steady click with just so many people. Abria, Erica, like it just keeps Christina area like being the face of the High Republic. It's just, and it all started from this small little batch of just nerds. Yeah, it really did. It really did. It's just like it just kind of feels like everybody's getting their ticket. Slow and steady, but everybody's getting their ticket. And I'm trying to get in that line, baby. I'm trying to get in that line.
I hear you, man. I am too. I am too.
Oh,
yeah.
So we've been at we're looking same brain. Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say we've been at this for about an hour and a half because we literally
I can go all day.
We share a brain cell. Do we want to take like a quick 10-minute break, and we'll be right back? Just do human some things, and we'll get back to our second section, the dark roast.
Yes, I am fiending for a cigarette.
All right, cool.
All right, we will see y'all in just a few.
All right.
One sec. Here we go. Well, and we're back.
Hey, there it is. We're back.
Yeah. And we back.
All right, so we're back with the second half, which we lovingly call the Dark Roast, where we say that we're going to talk about more serious topics, but we probably don't just talk about Star Wars or Star Trek or something. Because that's what we always do. So I kind of wanted to ask you a little about like your history. Like, how did you get started in the actual play scene? Like, how did that? Where's your origin story?
Yeah, I moved to Los Angeles because I wanted to break into professional acting, and that is still kind of where my heart is. Even though I don't pursue it professionally anymore, I haven't for a while. But the thing is. I was a kid. I was diagnosed with ADHD when I was like 7, so they caught it pretty early. My dad's military, so we had access to healthcare. It was really great back then, and I got diagnosed pretty early. And all throughout my school life, I was constantly I was subjected to the public education system that did not understand mental health and disability. Yeah. And so I ended up, I was placed in special education when I was about, I guess it must've been about when I was 7. And I absolutely developed along the lines of the kid that was getting bullied all the time at school and beaten up and made fun of. And it was just like right out of the TV shows. Like, thankfully, like I didn't get beaten up too many times because I was really good. What I discovered is if I could make my bullies laugh, they would leave me alone. And what I got into was sketch comedy because of that. And that's when I started finding things like Monty Python and even though it didn't become my flavor of humor, but Benny Hill, I was like, oh, Benny Hill. Like Kids in the Hall was a big thing for me.
Classic.
Yeah. And so I got really big into sketch comedy, and everything started shifting when I started finding myself socially. Everything shifted a little bit when I got into high school because I lost a bunch of my friends, but I was introduced to Dungeons and Dragons. My family grew up, I love them to death, and they're good people. they're thankfully they have I'm from South Texas. So it could go, and my family does kind of, they're a little more on the red side of the force, as it were. So we do not see eye to eye on a lot of stuff. But
yeah, you're in LA.
Yeah, I'm in LA. And oh boy, they just and what they're and according to their news networks tell them that California is just a cesspool, and I'm like, what are you talking about? Anyway, that's a whole other thing. But suffice to say, I grew up with the reason why I bring that up is because my parents absolutely, particularly my mom, I love her to death, but my mom was absolutely reciting the Satanic Panic BS when I was a kid, and I lived next door to my best friend. James was in a family of Mormons, and they absolutely were convinced that Lucifer was just waiting for you inside the pages of a D&D book. And so I grew up being spooked by it. But then when I got into high school, I found my very first GM, Curtis Galloway, introduced me to D&D by handing me a novel called Dragons of Autumn Twilight, which I did not know was D&D. And the rest is history. Like, I became obsessed with RPGs. And in the 2000s, when I moved out to LA, RPGs are what kept me sane, and it's what helped me build a friend group, because LA terrified me. I kept getting attention as an actor, but I kept like sabotaging it because I was so scared of actually getting attention. Like we all know this, but like the sort of the fraud complex, the imposter syndrome was so intense that I was scared that if I actually succeeded, that everyone would realize I was a fraud. And so it was like self-sabotage for a decade. And in that time, I just got more and more involved with TTRPG, and I decided to when I almost started booking like television shows. Like, I was getting called in for House, and I was getting called in, like Steven Spielberg's casting director called me in for a show one time. And like, it got to the point where I freaked out so hard that I was done. I threw acting away and decided to just focus on writing. That's what got me noticed by Felicia Day, was my writing. She was doing a show called The Flog, which had just started up on Geek and Sundry, as Geek and Sundry had just launched. And I had been doing a lot of sketch comedy writing. That was, if I couldn't perform it, I was going to write it. So I was really big into that. And I submitted something to her, and it was so gratifying because I was dating this really toxic person at the time who had just dumped me because they said I was going nowhere in my life. And they idolized Felicia Day. And then Felicia Day is like, hey, you want to be my writer? And I was like, yes, oh, yes, eat it, just eat that. So Felicia brought me in to be a writer, and she kept hiring me over and over to write her stuff because she was so maxed out on bandwidth. She couldn't write her own stuff anymore. She was just doing too many things. So she wanted to find a writer that she felt captured her voice and that she could work with collaboratively on finding the jokes and like making it hers. And so she hired me for that. She hired me to do a couple of other shows and write some award jokes for her and Link and Rhett, or Rhett and Link, I should say. And then, and then I got asked to do a show called Signal Boost, and I introduced to Sean Becker, who had kind of already known, and then and I got introduced to somebody I'd never heard of before, Marisha Ray, although it turns out we had met before and I had forgotten because she was doing a Batgirl series and I had no idea. But we started doing Signal Boost, and all this time is when I started when I started noticing that Critical Role was streaming a D&D game, and I was like, oh my God, that's my bread and butter. And Marisha's like, yeah, that's my boyfriend who runs that. And I was like, oh shit. She's like, yeah, I play in it too. And I was like, oh, let's talk D&D. So like, we started talking all that. I'll never forget my very first episode of watching Critical Role. I was in studio and I was sitting out there watching it on the screen in the lobby. And there was this girl next to me who was watching intently. And I looked at her and I was like, do you play D&D too? And she's like, oh yeah, I play Ranger. And I was like, oh, awesome. I love Rangers. I don't know how they are in 5e. How are you enjoying it? And she was like, I like it a lot, but I made the decision. I have a pet bear that I love, but the problem is that I never want anything to happen to him, so I don't use him ever. So I feel kind of bad because I selected this class and I only use half the class, and we even put armor on him, and I still don't want anything to ever happen to him, so I never use him for anything. And I was like, oh, yeah, that's tough. That's really, I hadn't thought about that. But yeah, you don't want, I was like, yeah, because if you lose your animal, because in the original edition of the Ranger, you lose your animal companion, you gotta go get a new one. So, but I had no idea I was talking to Laura. I had no idea. I didn't know who she was, but it was great. This is where it just kept snowballing. Like and then the day came where Ivan needed to take the day off of Foreververse and asked me if I wanted to run something, if I would cover for him. So I was like, yeah, I decided to run a Mad Max one shot on the World of Darkness system, which I did with Hector and Amy and everybody. And it was good, demented fun. And after that, I got approached by the showrunners of Twitch, of our Twitch channel, because that was their domain. And they were like, hey, so we're doing a show called Pit Crew. Would you like to come and run a Star Wars game? So I was like, yeah, let's do it. So I ran a Star Wars game for them. And they asked me to come do it again. So I did it again. This is when I met Sam DeLev and I met Amy Dallin. And they came and played in it. And the audience really liked it. And so there was gaps in the programming. And they were asking like, hey, would you be interested in running something else? And I was like, yeah, oh my God, yes. And what's funny to me at the time is I didn't even like GMing, but all of a sudden I was like, yeah, I'll do it. Yeah, that sounds fun. And about the same time, I was trying so hard to become salaried position at GNS. So I was trying everything I could to get in the door because at the time I was just contract. So about the same time, they were like, hey, so we're going to give you a show called, whatever you want to name it. And play whatever you want. And I was like, I'll play a little of everything. And we'll ask the audience what to name it. The audience are the ones who named it Eric's TBD-RPG. I did not name that show. They did. So, and about the same time, I got called upstairs one day and I thought I was going to be offered a job doing like maybe writing for the company. Mm-hmm. But they were like, hey, so we're considering you for director of development. What do you think of that? And I was like, that sounds up until this point, I was making $600 a month and asking my folks for help. And I was scraping by. And the money that I was getting from my contract pay, which was very irregular, was the most money I'd ever made before. I was getting, I like when I saw a paycheck for $1,200, I was like, oh my God. Okay, I got to be responsible. Like that's got to go towards rent. So they were like, we want to offer you a salary position. And it was the happiest day ever because it was the first time I'd ever felt a sense of security in my life. I was being asked to join a company to do what it is that I'd been made ashamed of doing growing up, not necessarily by my parents, but like by girlfriends who didn't really like what I did and like by people that I'd hung out with. And I had been asked to come join a company, the company at the time that was making this content and asked to run games. And I just said, yeah. We finished about halfway through TBD-RPG. We had enough people responding to my girlfriend in chat is screaming inferior girlfriends in all caps right now.
Hear it.
Can I just say I am also a very big fan of your girlfriend.
Oh yeah, you ask Jody to come to your show anytime. She would love to come. She loves. She's yeah. That's and funny thing. I met Jody on TTRPG, and we were friends for years. I had no idea that I was going to fall in love with her one day, but here we are. But you know, it took me a hot second for me to realize what everyone else already knew is that she's amazing. So, but like. Halfway through Eric's TTRPG, they were like, hey, if we gave you a show and a time slot in the evening, because we want to build out our programming so that we're not the Critical Role channel. So if we gave you another thing, what would you want to do? And it's funny because as director of development, people thought that was my call. It wasn't. When shows got greenlit, I would develop them. Or if I saw a show that I wanted us to make, I would help pitch it to the company to see if we could get it greenlit. And if we did, then it came to my desk and I developed it with the creators and we came up with their shows. So they were asking me if I wanted to do a show and I said, what can I do? And they were like, pitch us some ideas. The very first thing I pitched them was Tron. I was like, okay, I want to run a show about Tron. Like there's a Tron game. Like, can I do that? And they were like, no, because Disney. And I was like, oh, right. I'm at a big corporation. I can't do that.
Yeah.
Okay. Good point. Okay. Solid point. So then I thought the next thing I thought, I was like, well, I've got the Decipher books. So why don't I run Star Trek? Because I had Last Unicorn's Star Trek Next Generation book and I had the Decipher books and I was like, I'll run Star Trek. So as I was doing research and Googling for Star Trek, they're like, yeah, let's play with that because it's kind of the same issue, but let's see what we can do. And I was like, okay, so I was Googling like, where can I find the rest of the Decipher books that I don't have? And that's when I found out that there was a company called Modifius about to release a Star Trek RPG. And I was like, shit. So I reached out to Modifius and I was like, hey, I'm Eric. I don't know if you've heard of Geek and Sundry. I don't want to assume anything, but this is what we do. And they were like, what do you want from us? Was kind of they're like, because think about it, like we were the premier TTRPG channel, and they're about to launch their big licensed product is about to come out, and I'm like, hey, I want to give you the biggest platform that currently exists for this space, and they were all in, and that was kind of that is sort of like the rest is history, and after we wrapped Callisto 6, and that was the end of my time at GNS. Everything else that I said, we were just like, we don't want to stop. And I was like, I don't know if I can make a living doing this, but I don't want to go back to serving coffee. And I don't want to, I just want to, I don't know if there's any space. Like right now, I know the internet has enough bearded white dudes running games, but I was like, I can't just walk away from this. Like I found something that's finally giving me what I've always looked for. And I've got to cast the die. I can't just walk away from this. It would be terrible. This is what I was born to do. So I played my hand, and it's been a wobbly ride for the past 2.5 years since GNS, but Streampunks has really been like the home to do stuff. And yeah, and that's how I got into the tabletop RPG streaming space.
I like how you essentially backdoored your imposter syndrome and bypassed it completely.
Like I like Felicia is so busy. I don't think she understands, but I'm like, I keep telling her every time we have a chance to chat, I'm like, you were the catalyst for so much shit. I'm like, it's not just CR. You know, whatever the legacy is, and she knows this, but like the legacy of GNS is the fertile ground that it laid for people like Gina DeVivo and Erika Ishii and Whitney Moore. I mean, Whitney Moore was already kind of known, but like, do you know what I mean? Like that space, that generation of people that are really pursuing what they love. It was wild that place was just like an incubator for all the stuff that
like
exists.
Your story sounds like this is going to sound weird at first, but like, let me explain. Your story sounds like Forrest Gump through the TTRPG community.
Totally is. 100% best explanation. Yeah.
It's just
100%.
like you're meeting, like you're in the midst of like all this like historical.
Yeah. And you know how it all happened? Felicia Day noticed my writing. I kid you not. This is exactly how it happened. I had that toxic relationship I was talking to. She was an up and coming name in the web series space, and she had just dumped me after literally telling me, you don't know where you're going with your life. And I was working at a really shitty coffee shop, and like with a wonderful owner. She was wonderful, but like the environment at the coffee shop was really shitty and like cliquey as fuck and like awful. And I was miserable. And I was serving coffee one day, and a woman named Kim Evie came up to the counter to order a drink. And I recognized her because my oldest, bestest friend, America Young, who is like also just exploding into the space as one of the up and coming indie directors for women in Hollywood, and she's also the voice of Barbie and does a freaking great job. She's also Batgirl in the upcoming game, so check it out.
Hey.
But like she had introduced me to Kim Evie ages ago because America's connected to everybody, and I was like, hey, I recognize you. Yeah, you guys do the guild, like. It's nice to meet you. I'm friends with America. And we started a conversation that led into geek stuff and writing. And at the very end of the conversation, she was like, well, listen, we're looking for writers right now if you want to submit something. And she gave me her card, Knights of Good. And I was like, thanks. And I took it home and I immediately submitted a piece of writing for it. And I didn't hear anything for 6 months. And I was like, well, I shot my shot. And then out of nowhere, I was expecting it to be like staged, like, hey, why don't you come in and talk to us and blah, blah, blah. And then maybe another meeting. And then, hey, we might offer you a contract or something. I got an email 6 months later that was like, so Felicia wants to hire you. And I was like, because up until that point, I was standing in line for her autograph. And now she wanted to hire me to write her voice. So it is absolutely so cool. Forrest Gump. Like I fell into it. I stumbled my way into it. I had no idea that was going to happen. So bizarre.
So what I want to ask, what's the moment where you were just like, oh yeah, this is what I meant to be doing? Like, what's the moment where it clicked? Like, this is my thing.
Mm-hmm.
It was Matt and I were having a conversation late at night. Almost everyone had left the office, and it was just me and I don't remember why he had come in that night, but he was so busy at the time. Particularly because he was working on the first Exandria book.
Right.
And he flogged his guts out on that book. Like he was working nonstop. That was just hellacious. And I don't remember what it was, but we were just talking because we were having this conversation about how bizarre it was that our hobby had become our job and how our games had become shows. And how that dynamic is so new and how it's changing. Like now all of a sudden we're responsible for what we're putting in front of people. Now all of a sudden we're responsible for what's being presented because we're inviting an audience into our game. So we were having conversations about that. And at first it started out with, oh man, this is a lot of pressure. I don't know if you can sustain this. But then we spent like an hour talking about like how much this means to us and how important it is. And what I realized in that moment was I was like, it sounds so corny because you hear it all the time, but to be in the community, to have connected with people out there who I would see, I have ADHD too, or people who are like, because of you, I run Star Trek now, or, you know what I mean? When little things like that happen, for me, it was beginning to realize suddenly, rather inexplicably, I just realizing that I didn't realize that I had been missing I didn't realize for better or worse, mostly for worse, I didn't realize that I did not attach a significance to my own life. I didn't have a point of view of myself that I was in any way a contributor in any cause or anything I was doing. And all of a sudden the GNS community was like cracking jokes about me and things that I typically do, or like things that I would say, or people getting excited about me or saying my name in all caps. And it wasn't appealing to a sense of ego. It was appealing because up until that point, that had been me saying that about others. And I felt just such a sense of kinship with everybody who was coming to watch our shows. And to think that I could do it for a living, I was like, there's no greater gift. I cannot believe it, but I think this is it. I think it's kind of like it chooses you more than you choose it. You just find yourself doing it. And If it's something that you are compelled to do, then you're being given the hint that this is what you should be doing. For however scary it is, however scary it can be, you're telling yourself what it is, and you really just have to listen.
It's quite something to like, they're like Hall of Fame GMs, and they're like people that are really tethered to projects. Like you say Vampire the Masquerade, you think Jason Carl and B Dave. You say Dungeons and Dragons, you think Brennan and Matt. I put you in the same category where you whenever I bring up Star Trek, your name drops. Like it's just so like that is that is a lot.
You just hit your mic in the
yeah.
It's a lot, yeah. And thank you. I and we're not done with Star Trek, not by a long shot. The Stream Punks will definitely be doing Star Trek again. I don't have any problem. Star Trek. I'm one of the billions of people out there that has an emotional story about how Star Trek changed their life, and it's closely associated with somebody, my grandfather, who I lost way back. But every time we run a Star Trek show, I've commissioned a ship plaque to be made of the ship that we do, and my grandfather's name is always on that plaque.
Heck yeah.
Star Trek has a deeply personal connection to me, and I am beyond humbled that I kind of stumbled into that, and in some strange alternate like mirror universe way, I am at least somewhere in like the professional fandom connected to Trek.
Tangentially, you are canon. It's true.
It's true. We're on Memory Alpha. String Punks is mentioned on Memory Alpha, and that blows my mind. I'm like, geez. We owe so much to Star Trek Online. They've done so much for us. So
that is just you have your ship in Picard. Like that's so freaking cool, man.
when I saw episode 1 and I saw the Ross class like facing down the Borg ship, and I was like, what is life? It's so weird. Like it's as you would say tangentially. But I'm like, this is huge. All I've ever wanted to do is be a part of Star Trek. And if I somehow, even though I gave up on acting and I stopped writing professionally, somehow I still managed to find at least a little piece. And it's wild.
It's incredible.
We see. So my next question is like, we're getting more Star Trek, which I am super excited about. And we know that many of the cast members of Discovery and Picard play. So is there any chance we might see some okay, yes.
Yeah, there's a chance.
Okay, that's what I'm hoping for.
Yeah, there's a chance. When we this is the funny thing is, and my community has heard this story before, but when we launched Shield of Tomorrow, we had to reach, at the time it was CBS that we had to talk to.
Yeah.
So we reached out to CBS to make sure they were cool with what we were doing, because again, there was some anxiety. And to this day, nobody really knows where the line is when it comes to running official IP stuff.
Right.
And your group. Like,
I know.
The general
the Delta symbol isn't copyright because it's a basic shape, so you can still use that in your branding, but you can't. I try to stay away from saying I use Star Trek Adventures in the title instead of like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you can get around that, if it passes the running fool test, is what Saxcar used to say. Where if somebody is running by and they see it just for an instance and they don't mistake it for what it was meant to be, then you're good. But if somebody sees your show and thinks, oh, that's a Star Trek show, then CBS might be like, So Thomas Maroney designed our Clear Skies logo, and it was brilliant because he came up with a way of using the chevron logo without actually looking like Trek. It was great. But when we were developing Shield of Tomorrow, we had to talk to CBS, and it's a funny story. I reached out to them and I was like, hey, so we want to do the show, and it's for Star Trek Adventures, so it's a license holder, but we want to wear the uniforms and we want to have the insignia, like the badges, and we were thinking about building a set. Are you cool with that? And they were like, oh yeah, no, we're fine. The only thing we ask is that if you have any original cast members on your show, of any show, they can't play their characters. They can play anything else, but you can't have like Will Wheaton come play Wesley. And I was like, oh, yeah, no problem. I would ask Will Wheaton to play a Q anyway, but yeah, no problem.
That is the correct answer to that.
Yeah, I want to see Will Wheaton play Q. So I was like, yeah, no, that's the, and the other thing they were like, and building a set is fine, but we asked that you make it realistic looking, like it has to look like Star Trek. And we were like, oh, sure. And they were like, in fact, here is 2 gigs of video archives of us building Voyager set. Go. They were like, you're doing an Intrepid class? And we were like, yeah. And they were like, here's all the picture of the set builds. And we were like, thank you.
Like, at that point, you would think that CBS and Paramount would just be like, hey, we got a streaming service and we need content. You know, here's some money. Your show is ours now.
my suspicion is that if anyone actually tried to boot up a Star Trek show that was acknowledged by Paramount Plus would be like, all right, we're going to do this. Who's this Eric guy? Yeah, no, he's not a celebrity. Get him out of here. Let's have Anthony Rapp run it. Go. That is 100% what would happen.
I don't think so. Like,
I don't think so.
I don't think so. Like, I think that the smart play would be to have an established GM and to just
community.
Yeah, and just to feed guest stars over and over and over again.
Maybe I have a feeling. I have a feeling that they would ask Will to run it, or because Will's a GM, they would probably ask him to run it. My suspicion is, because it's been my experience that when stuff like that happens, it's one of the reasons why you're probably never going to see me on bigger streams, because I'm not known as a celebrity. I'm only known to the TTRPG space of the people who follow Geek and Sundry. And a lot of people who followed us on Shield of Tomorrow don't even know that we're still doing stuff. There are people like, wait, there's another Star Trek campaign? I'm like, yeah, we played it for almost 2 years, but no one knows.
It's what Felicia Day would refer to as situationally famous.
Yeah, Felicia always used to joke that she was Comic-Con famous. Like, no one in the real world knows who the hell she is, but when she goes to Comic-Con, she's treated like she is the queen of Comic-Con. And she's like, I'm always just shocked by that. But it's true. It's such a niche thing. Like, people who have been in the TTRPG space are familiar, but beyond that, when you can get like people from Dimension 20 or Critical Role to do a thing and you're going to drop money, they'll probably do. Like, Paramount would probably be more interested in dropping money and paying somebody from CR to learn the Star. Like, Ashley Johnson is a huge Star Trek fan. They would probably be like, let's pay Ashley Johnson to run Star Trek. Would probably be the play, because they're going to be like, that's going to get views. So
you're probably right because you've got more experience in this, but I'm like, I would just think like, Ashley Johnson has Critical Role. You're not going to take Ashley Johnson away from Critical Role, and you're not going to ask Anthony Rapp to consistently be doing the GMing for this. Like, get the GM.
But think of it like this. An executive at Paramount is going to be like, Critical Role, I don't know about that. Tell me what it is. Their assistant's going to come back with, oh, this is the company that made 11 million on Kickstarter for an animated series that Amazon got 2 seasons of. And they're going to be like, okay, then we want them running. That's it.
Yeah.
All they're going to know is it's like, oh, this is a global phenomenon. And like, sure. All right, then that's who's going to run it. What else? Just give it to me quick. I don't care about it.
We need to mobilize. We need to yell at Paramount. This is a call to action. I want this to happen bad.
I mean, we'll see. Like, I've talked to members of the Discovery cast who have been like, who there have been a couple of conversations where they're like, if so long as Paramount's okay with it, just let us know if you want us to come play. We would just need to check with Paramount. And I'm like, that would be amazing. So I feel like someday, even if it's just a one shot, I feel like someday we will get a chance to do it, which I would love to, because they're all wonderful people. They're all they are like, it seems like every Trek cast, with maybe an exception to the original. There's definitely sects of people in the original, but like, it seems like every Trek cast is just a big happy family. And like Discovery is just such a big beacon of light for that cast. And anyway, I would love to
I like when you bring that up, my mind immediately goes to Galaxy Quest.
Yeah, totally. Totally. Yeah. Yep. Oh boy.
I have one job.
Yeah.
The stupid
God.
shit.
Sigourney Weaver, man.
Oh my gosh, she was just unfairly hot in that movie. So this is the part of the show where I ask you our trademark question.
Yeah.
And this is what the question is. In the TTRPG community, if you've been here long enough, you've probably had the experience of playing with a that guy. A that guy is a black hole of fun at the table. Somebody that if they were yeeted into the sun, your enjoyment of the experience would increase 100-fold. So, Eric, do you have a that guy story?
Let me think. We've been super lucky. It speaks well that I have to think hard about this.
Yeah, I know that's a great sign. Like
I don't think I do have it. That not for Stream Punks or for our GNS thing. I don't. I don't like to say that we're super selective, but we know who vibes with us. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
we're from the very beginning, the formation of our group, we have been a conscientious, diverse, positive group that has put a lot of emphasis on taking care of each other and addressing a lot of issues like disability and just pretty much everything, like across the spectrum of like mental health, disability, race relations, like all the whole thing is deeply intrinsic to who we are, because every player that came to our table from the different walk of life that they came to, Sam would laugh at me right now because they seize any opportunity to take casually ableist language and throw it in your face and giggle about it.
Walk, you say?
Yeah, exactly. Sam would be like, I'm not walking anywhere. What? Sam would totally do that. That's absolutely on their behalf. They're in the middle of playing Horizon Zero Dawn right now. So on their behalf, I have to say it.
When we had Sam on the show, we talked about the fact that the X Mansion doesn't have ramps for 2 hours.
Oh God, they will go on. That sets the way I feel about people who take up 2 parking spaces is how Sam feels about Xavier in the mansion. Like Sam will go off. Yeah, we've been really lucky because this is something I would love to see somebody write a book about. But like, I'm gonna be real with y'all. CR gets a lot of heat because of how big they are now. They're incredibly visible, and they have largely remained the same as when they first started. The reason being is they were a group of friends who got a camera turned on them. And that was the birth of CR, which is why they are who they are. They are using their platform now to make some big changes and be more inclusive, and they're using that platform to spotlight and highlight. I've had conversations with Matt about this, and they're very excited to do that, and they want to use that platform for that. But they've gotten a lot of heat for that because they're a big piece of media and they're pretty caucastic. Yeah. And they get pointed at for that, and they know it, and they are doing what they can to fix that up. The reason why I point at that is because, first of all, I just also want to say they're wonderful people. Like, they're my best.
When you said that, though, I'm just imagining back going, damn, I'm white as fuck.
But that's the thing is like, it's so true. And they get pointed at for that. And it's because they've come far enough in their careers now where there is a tremendous amount of pressure on them for the media that they're creating. They're not the small group anymore that started up, the scrappy little group that started up at GNS. And they too are adapting to that by getting people in there. Like Exandria Unlimited is fucking amazing. And if you guys haven't seen it yet, and we're probably going to see a lot more of that in the future from CR. And I'm excited about that. The reason why I'm bringing all of this up is because from the moment Streampunk started to come into existence at Geek and Sundry, we were always an inclusive, diverse cast because we got to cast ourselves. We got to pick who we wanted to play with. And we knew from the beginning that we were on a platform and we wanted to get people in there that were representing the space. So from the beginning, we had a player makeup that was unique to the TTRPG space at the time. Mm-hmm. Right. And as a result of that, we have had a truly positive and diverse and wonderful fandom find us. So we don't get that toxic side of the TTRPG space like D&D does. Because from the beginning, like, what are you doing watching us if you got a problem with trans people? Because you come to the wrong damn show, my friend. Like, from the beginning, we were attracting our people, and the same was true for the players. So we've been very, very lucky in that we have had players come in and they've all been cool as shit. Like, everybody in our cast is in guest spots. The only time that we had somebody go off the map and I had to do a quick adjust, and I love him to death. He's a good friend and he's been on our shows a couple. We need to get him back on one of our shows, but like, there was a moment in Shield of Tomorrow where we had a guest player who we had a plan and everything. We had a guest player just do whatever the fuck he wanted, and took pieces of my narrative and just did whatever the fuck he wanted with it. And it really just like all these plots and plans that I had for the future and what I had set was just being thrown out the window because he was just making shit up as he was. And so I was like, this is not what we talked about. Like, I was like, that was, and so that's not even in the same realm as like a black hole player, but like, that was the only incident where I had a moment where
that's
I was
a wild card.
Yeah, I was like, what the fuck are you doing?
He's going rogue.
See this beautifully crafted plot?
Yeah. I was like, he like just arbitrarily changing like what I had planned for character backstory, and I was like, no, like thank you for taking initiative and doing it, but that's my job. Like, what are you doing? So that was the only incident where I've ever had a real problem at the table, and beyond that, like we've been super lucky. We haven't, at least for Stream Punks in our group, we've been super lucky.
It looks like you guys are continuing the vibe check from GNS. You guys haven't missed.
I will say we have definitely had player problems, like every group does.
Oh yeah.
We have player problems. There's always player conflicts. We've definitely had issues at the table. We've had safety issues at the table, but a lot of people are surprised to hear that because we handle it in a way that doesn't spotlight people, that we don't want to make people uncomfortable. We want to make sure that players at the table feel comfortable coming forward anonymously and saying, hey, they come to me as the GM and say, hey, this made me uncomfortable. And then I, as a GM, will go and talk to a person and whatnot. Okay. That way, everyone can feel safe of like, hey, I have a thing and I don't want anybody to feel targeted. Mm-hmm. I can come to the person and be like, hey, so this happened last game session and we should talk about it. We've definitely had our own internal conflicts like that before. We're still together because we can deal with it and talk and remember to love each other.
Yeah, every table needs to have healthy conflict management because conflict will arise at the table. Is just part of it. And it sounds like you guys have that on lock, which is amazing to hear. Especially
super challenging.
Yeah. I mean, I think it goes to show just the value of safety tools at the table.
Yeah, 100%. Because you're not just protecting player comfort. You're also protecting friendship and trust. Like people, and I will say this too, and this is, it's hard for me to say this because it's difficult to stand up for yourself sometimes. But it's important to remember too that the GM is also a player at the table,
and your fun is also important.
Yeah, and it's very important to remember that, especially a GM who has decided to be the person to step forward and address issues, because I can be conflict avoidant. I mean, I'm a Buddhist, so like I don't take any particular pleasure in like having to be like, hey, so this is a thing. But I've become so appreciative of what it means to actually talk to somebody when there's a problem. Because there have been so many instances where someone's had a problem with me or something I did or said, and instead of talking with me, they pieced out.
Yeah.
And that's really sad because that could have been worked out and it didn't have to be like, there could have been a conversation. I would never have done that. And it to each their own. Like, I'm not going to pass judgment, but for me, I've become so appreciative of conversation and working things out that I feel a sacred obligation to do that when there's a problem. But the flip side to that is I'm hoping that as players, people understand that that's your opportunity to take care of your GM. Because they're coming to you because they want to take care of you, but it's not easy for us to do that. There's a lot of us who, myself in particular, like I don't like coming to friends and being like, hey, so let's talk about this phrase that kept coming up in the last game, or hey, so if there's going to be a romance in our game, this needs to be talked about before we you know what I mean? You can't, springing that on a player in a live stream is tricky. So let's talk about this.
Yeah.
So there's conversations like that are not comfortable to have. It's an opportunity for both sides to take care of one another. So as a player, if you become hostile or defensive or something like that, that's rough.
Yeah.
Because that's making it hard on the GM, and it's going to ultimately hurt the integrity of the group. So I encourage every player, this is your opportunity to be like, to receive and listen and be like, oh, okay, let's work this out. It'll just strengthen the bonds at the table and strengthen the trust.
Yeah, I was just about to say, like, there have been so many relationships that I've had that have grown stronger because we've had the uncomfortable talks of, hey, what you did, like, you know, hey, when you did this, I felt this type of way. And just kind of getting it out there with the understanding, like, you know, you may not have meant to be, you know, intentionally malicious, but this is what I felt. And as long as both people are working in good faith to correct it, usually the relationship grows much stronger.
Can I give you a story? This is probably the most important experience I've had in TTRPG, and it involves Sam.
Absolutely.
So when I first started playing with Sam, this is again another story my community is familiar with. But when I very first started playing with Sam, we were playing Eric's TBD RPG, and there was an episode where there was a body swap with Davros. Davros is one of the most infamous ableist characters in sci-fi, and I fell into every terrible disability trope that a GM could fall into.
Ooh.
And Sam came up to my desk afterwards and asked if they could talk to me. And they pulled me aside and we talked about the episode, because Sam had to sit there at the table and listen to me narrate how liberated somebody felt being back in an abled body.
Oh, yeah.
And so Sam pulled me aside and was like, let's chat. And they were patient and calm, and they spoke to me about it. And I sat there and listened to them, and this creeping sense of deep shame and horror began to creep over me for two reasons. One, I'd hurt someone that I was coming to care about very much. I'd done something that was really terrible in front of a live audience where everyone was going to see it, and also people were going to be reinforced if they thought the same way I did. So ouch.
Yeah.
And then the last one was, it started making me realize that was my first taste of what privilege is like, in that I was finally starting to realize sort of the subtle cancerous presence of not being aware or educated or anything about other people's experiences. And I sat there and listened to Sam and was like, I realized, holy shit, I did that. I absolutely did that. And what scared me the most was how I thought it was totally fine. This is how it's done in media. Like, what do you mean? But I listened to Sam, and when we were done, I said, okay, would you be comfortable if we shot an Instagram video where we talked about this for the audience? And we can talk about what I did, and we can talk about why it was a problem. And I was expecting Sam to say no, because I don't want to put that on Sam's shoulders. That's not Sam's responsibility. But Sam said yes. And so we did like an hour-long Q&A about the Davros episode on our Instagram videos, because that was the only like live slot we had. And from that day forward, I told people, I'm like, listen, if like, I became super nervous at that, because I was like, dude, I said this to Eliza one time too, because Eliza wanted me to portray her mother in Callisto 6, and Eliza is her mother was Puerto Rican, and I was like, I was like, so we had long conversations about this, and she's like, you're gonna be fine. And I'm like, my biggest fear, and this is still true, my biggest fear is that one day again, I'm going to step on the landmine of some shitty white privilege shit that I grew up thinking or being a part of that I have not, like, for whatever reason, my own damn fault, like, I have not become educated on or aware of, and I'm gonna hurt a friend on live stream, or I'm gonna say something awful. Like, of course I'm worried about being abused on Twitter. Like, that's terrifying for somebody with social anxiety. but I never want to. I made a decision that day. Like, I'm not putting anybody through that again. Yeah. So being vigilant as hell, and that Sam has become probably my dearest friend in the world. And a large part of that was because Sam decided to take on the burden to come and approach me, and the trust that developed between us because of our ability to have those conversations is immeasurable. I cannot stress it enough. Like, be receptive and be willing to communicate, and you'll be amazed at how you will grow as a person and the friendship that can develop from that.
I mean, I think there's no better showing of someone's character than how they react to being checked.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of people lash out when checked.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, because, you know, especially because it's very easy to dupe yourself into thinking like, well, I didn't do this to hurt anybody. So like, you know, if you were hurt, like,
yeah.
But your intentions don't negate the impact of what you've done.
Yeah, well,
exactly.
That takes a different level of maturity that, you know, that not everybody has reached. You know, I remember the first time that I was checked GMing, and this was well before there was a Twitch or anything, where, you know, in my world I wanted to be inclusive, so I had, you know, a gay bar. Because there are gay bars in real life, why wouldn't I have one in my world? And you know, I was not part of the LGBT community. I didn't have any I didn't have proper exposure to it, and so the LGBT community in my world was not representative of how it should be. And I was playing with someone that was part of that community, and they checked me, and like, I remember the moment where I had to really have a conversation with myself, like, I could be angry right now because that's the easy way to go, or I could shut the hell up and listen.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, much respect to you and to Sam for doing that, because I mean, I'm like, it's easy to get gun shy after being checked as a GM, because it's just like, well, I didn't see that coming, so what else have I been doing? Yeah. Or what else have I done? Oh man, that is.
It was a lot of terror, because, you know, I was there, so I would see like somebody would get upset at CR for something that was said during one of the live streams, and it would tear Matt apart. He would be so upset, not at the people for saying it. He would just be upset that he felt like he would rip himself apart. He would take it on. And I sympathize with that, because it was terrifying, the idea of going on, and you don't want to offend you don't want to hurt anybody. And to think that this thing that's become so meaningful to you could be wielded so carelessly as to hurt someone. And yes, there is a toxic element online that wants a fight. There's no question that does exist. We don't entertain
Twitter
that.
has a villain of the day.
Yes, exactly. That exists. There's no way around that. And that is present in a lot of the stuff. I'll never forget. Oh, dude, I will never forget when Shield of Tomorrow first started. And I just stayed out of this. I didn't say anything. But when Shield of Tomorrow first started, we had our cast, and someone came at us for having a cast. This is their exact words. Having a cast filled with women with a dude who is lording over them as the captain. And so I corrected. I was like, Sam's not a woman, but you know, and then Hector jumped in and said, does it help that I'm brown? And the person deleted the tweet, and we never heard anything about it ever again. But like, when that stuff, people will come picking a fight, and I just like, I will stay out of it and be like, you know, it does happen. My big thing is just, I never want anybody to feel uncomfortable like that at my table again. So I go, it's not a lot of effort to just ask questions and read and explore. And if something's upsetting you, ask yourself, why is it really upsetting me? Like, what am I really pissed off about? When people get defensive about that, it's usually because they think that, hey, you did this thing, and here's why what you said is a racial thing.
Yeah.
Let me explain. Like Sam is a huge advocate of getting rid of the word cripple, and explains to me why, the C word. And I'm like, I'm all in on that. Like, it completely makes sense to me. But I've run into prominent GMs in the space who refute it. because they're like, wait a minute, if I'm going to describe a ship that's being disabled, like, and I'm like, hey, you just did.
Congratulations, you got it one.
But it's like the pronoun argument.
Yeah, exactly. But they resist it because they think they think that I just called them like an ableist, or they think that they think, hey, you said, you know, I used to use the word lame to describe things that weren't cool, and Sam was like, hey, what's up? Let's talk. And I was like, oh shit.
That's exactly how they do it, though. Like,
oh shit, you're right. Like stuff I didn't even think about. Critical Bard was like, hey, just so you know, like, this is, I know we like to say idiot a lot, but let's talk about that. And I was like, oh shit, you're right. Like, it's a lot because people think, you know, people do get exhausted because they're like, how much do I need to check my fucking language here, man? Because like there are going to be times where I'm trying to portray society, and then you get into that whole mess of an argument.
We live in a society.
Yeah, we live in a society. So my whole thing, I've adopted my official stance when engaging on Twitter, and as particularly as like a cis white dude, is shut up and listen. Just shut up and listen. It's kind of my.
I mean, you're absolutely right in the sense that there are what I like to call buzzards, which are people that only become active when you know the Twitter villain of the day has
someone to burn. Yeah.
You know, and those are the kind of people that I generally just do not respect. I like people that are trying to refine our community. Like,
same.
You know, if
Positive,
there's somebody that's doing something that is problematic, then we try to fix that so that our community is safe for everybody. But there are some people that just kind of enjoy the more punitive side of things.
Yes. And 100%. And we're friends with some of them. And the truth is like, it's why I tend to promote more people like Sam, who I honestly feel like Sam is one of the great undiscovered gems of the TTRPG community. I
absolutely
adore Wonderful Sam.
Yeah.
This is just a Sam love stream now.
Yes. I talk about them all the time because they're my partner. Like, I've been gaming with them forever. They're one of the most important people in my life. And so people might think I have a bias, but I'm like, no, you don't understand. Like, part of the reason why I love them so much is because they are one of the most important fixtures in the TTRPG community, and no one is seeing them. Like, I'm shocked. Like, Amy has Sam on in D&D Beyond, which is great. And Sam just got this new thing on Demiplane, which is great. Sam needs to be on G4. Like, Sam needs to be in front of, Sam should be up there with everyone that's on the top tier, like Pantheon. Like, I can't say it enough. Like, they are such a positive, educated, like, articulate, brilliant force in this community. And I will die on that hill. Like, they are absolutely important. And we need more people like them to be a voice in the TTRPG community. And it's criminal that they are not more exposed in the TTRPG space for all of the support and beautiful things that they bring to this place. So
Sam is just a warm person. Like, that the way, whenever I think of Sam, I just think of warmth. Like, somebody whose company is just like, and what's funny is a lot of the things that Sam promotes, I've seen other people promote in, like, I don't want to say hateful ways, but just ways that are so abrasive and harsh. And like, Sam could have that same conversation with you, sit you down, point out the things that you've done wrong, and it's just like, oh, okay, I get it. Yeah. So it's just, I don't know.
Even when Sam feels that way, they will still break it down and engage in a positive way.
Right.
Because they want to communicate. You know? I mean, they'll draw a line. There's some shitty things that we have seen. There's some shitty things that we have seen, and in the TTRPG space together, and Sam has pointed it out, and I've become aware of stuff like that from people that we know that are making content that we are like, fuck, those people should know better. But like, Sam's intention is to engage in a way that doesn't ostracize anybody or make somebody feel isolated. They want to educate, but fuck, it's also exhausting as shit. Like, it shouldn't be Sam's responsibility, anybody's responsibility. So I try to, like, we need more people like that in the spotlight so that people can start asking their own questions and see the example that's being set and start to realize things, so that I don't have to have conversations with prominent GMs over why you should probably switch out some language when it comes to how you're describing disability and stuff. So, yeah, it's worth it.
It's kind of funny because when you tell the story of, like, you know, talking to GMs about changing the language and they're like, no, it reminds me of this story where I played with another GM and they were like, you know, they kept calling me Enigma because I go by Noir Enigma. And I'm like, oh, you can just call me Noir. And it's like, oh no, that's French and it's kind of racist, so I'm just gonna not do that. And I'm like, it wasn't a request.
Yeah. Yeah, fascinating.
So we have a third question that we ask every guest, and I am going to ask it to you now, which is, you are God Emperor of the TTRPG community for one day. At the snap of your finger, a company can go defunct or become the number one company in the entire space. You have unlimited money to do whatever you want with. Your will is law. What do you do with your one day?
I would assemble. Let's just say I'm warping space-time too to make this possible. I would get everyone, and I would purposely exclude G4 and Critical Role because they're good. But I would get everyone else. I would get Pixel Circus, and I would get everybody. I'd get Lords of Waterdeep. I get everyone. I would get a studio. I'm sorry, Rivals of Waterdeep. I would get a studio, and I would hire everyone to broadcast all of their shows out of that studio and pay everybody damn good money to do it, and give them complete creative control over everything that they were doing. And they would own everything. I would pay for all of the artwork, all the music they wanted to do on the show, all the equipment, all the TD stuff. I'd just make content. I would make a shining beacon of, like, here is the full spectrum of glory that is the indie TTRPG space that is not being sponsored by major corporations or has corporate money or anything like that. And I would just make that would be like that. I would make the Valhalla of TTRPG. I would just be like, everybody come play. We broadcast whenever the F.
Only the most honored, venerable warriors come here.
Yeah. And I would ask everybody to just, like, I would that would be the dream. I would just do that. I know it's, yeah.
I'm a little biased as the producer of Rivals of Waterdeep, but I like this plan.
Yeah, I would totally do it. I would absolutely do it. I would pay everybody like everyone would be making $1,000 an episode for everything they were doing. Like, just go. Like, I would love to do that. And then I would have small indie publishers come on and talk about their stuff. Like, I would make a corner for people to come. I have so many, God, I wish I could have recorded that conversation. There was this incredibly magical moment in my life where I was up in Seattle, and I was staying for a couple of days in the house of one Monty Cook, and I got to hang with him for about 3 days in Seattle. And he is just the most wonderful person, but he is OG. Like, he was an up and comer in the TSR days. He helped create Planescape. That was his brain baby, right? I'll never forget the conversation where I was asking him stupid questions like, so is it Ganassi or Genasi? And he's like, yeah, I've heard people say Genasi because of genies. And he's like, but originally it's Ganassi. That's what it was when I created them. And I was like, okay. And he's like, but my answer to you is it's whatever the hell you want it to be. So if people want to call it Genasi, then that's what it is. That was his answer. He's like, if it's Genasi, then it's Genasi. And I was like, I love this man. He is just...
He saw what happened to the inventor of GIFs and didn't want any part of that.
Jody Hauser and I are proof that couples that come from two houses both alike in dignity in Fair Verona, like, because Jody says GIF and I say GIF, and somehow we still make it work. It's just a testament. Somehow we still make it work.
I'm Team GIF.
Yeah, you're Team Jody. Yeah, you and me, Nor. You and me. Yep. Yeah, if I had those kind of resources, we'd all have a studio, and I'd fly you guys to LA, and we would do like we just film for like 4 weeks.
Listen, I really need to get out to LA so much.
Yeah.
We Jody, don't do this to me. I'm a fan.
I would basically, what I'm describing is I would basically make GNS 2.0, and I would make it so I would make it where there were no limits and no one who didn't understand what we were making would be involved.
Nerd and miscellany.
Yeah, totally. And then I would go and buy everything I've ever done from Legendary. I'd buy Shield of Tomorrow, and I'd buy Callisto 6. Bam.
Oh, they still own it?
They have the rights.
Well, yeah, they put up, that's their production. So it's a little dicey with Shield of Tomorrow because a lot of that is Star Trek, but like the name Shield of Tomorrow, that's absolutely going to, because I worked for Legendary when I developed that. So that's there.
That's right.
Callisto 6
so much.
Callisto 6 was an original world that I created, but I was director of development, and that was for Legendary. So they own all of that. And when people get a kind of like, oh man, that's such a drag, and I'm like, that's true. It sucks that I can't make anymore. But it's important to remember that they let me make it in the first place. Like they paid us all to they put that show up and they let us do it. So I'm eternally grateful. I can't be bitter because it wouldn't exist if they didn't greenlight it and give us a couple of seasons of it, So
that's true.
I wish I could have it, but I can always make, Titan 5 or whatever. You know what I mean?
Jody also wants you to buy Vast. There's a request in chat.
Jackson Lansing owns Vast, although I think all the episodes are owned by. I think that's the way it goes. I don't know. I don't have any inside information about that one. I just speculate, but I think I heard that. Yeah, because pretty much it makes sense though. If they put up money for it, they're going to own it. Like it makes sense. So.
I mean, weren't there a bunch of shows that were behind a paywall that are just now starting to come out on YouTube?
I don't know.
That was Project Alpha exclusive might have.
Maybe. I don't know what the story is. Yeah, I don't know what they're planning on doing with that. It's Nerdist now. Geek and Sundry is basically what is left of GNS has been folded into Nerdist. Okay. And so Nerdist is doing everything now. And I don't know what their strategy is. They might release more Geek and Sundry stuff. Callisto 6 season, our final season, is still not available on YouTube. It's still just behind the paywall on Twitch. But I don't know if they have any plans. I don't know if they want to. I'm wondering if Nerdist wants to get back into doing media like that again. I know that they do a couple of things on Twitch from time to time. Like they have a book club, which is really cool with Hector and Maud Garrett and Rachel Hine. I know Dan Casey does a lot of stuff. He's wonderful. But I don't know what Nerdist is up to or what their plans are. I regret that I never got a chance to work with those guys. We were pretty in our own pocket at Geek and Sundry, unfortunately, but Nerdist was great. Like the people over there were really cool.
Yeah. I mean, I remember Nerdist being like a huge presence. I hope they come back to prominence, or maybe what I'm thinking of when I think Nerdist is actually Geek and Sundry. I think that's what Nerdist, it is, because I'm just remembering the tabletop show had the Nerdist stinger on it beforehand.
Yeah. It was funny because Nerdist was a bigger brand. They were more recognizable. So when video game companies, it's so funny, like when video game companies would want to do something, they'd want to get Nerdist, but they'd want to live stream it on Twitch, except for the audience showed GNS is where the audience went for Twitch, because Nerdist was known for making great, big, awesome YouTube videos.
Yeah.
And Chobot and everybody were doing like great stuff over there, and Kyle and everybody doing really cool YouTube videos. And when it came to Twitch though, because of Critical Role and all the stuff that we were doing, thanks to Zach setting up the Twitch channel, that's where GNS lived. And so when we were doing live shows like that, when they wanted us to do actual plays, ironically, it was Geek and Sundry that was the place to go.
Yeah.
It was pretty funny that way. But I was never privy to that. Like I never had any inside knowledge of that. But it was funny that was our strength, was the live play stuff.
Yeah.
The thing that I always sorry.
Oh, go ahead. No, go ahead.
So the thing that I always laugh about is how with Callisto 6 specifically, we had Markia McCarty on the show, and the first place that I saw Markia was doing the Callisto 6 recaps on Geek and Sundry.
I love Markia. Yeah. Yeah, Markia. And now she works over at Hunters.
Yeah.
And is like, she does great stuff. Markia is a big fixture in the community too. First time I ever met Markia was actually when I ran a Critical Role one shot during a charity live stream where I got to sit at the table. That son of a bitch is so spoiled with that table.
It's such a nice.
I got to.
It looks so good.
I've told him, I'm like, you motherfucker, like that is the net. When they brought that table in, and I sat in that GM's chair, I was like, you. Wormwood is just like, here, have a however many hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of table. It's all yours. I was like, dude. So I sat down and saw the trays and got to sit there and run the game there. It was wild. But Markia, I asked her to come play in that game. I had no knowledge of her. And the moment we started playing, like, she just started yes-anding like a motherfucker. Like, right off the top, she was just so strong. I was like, damn.
I love playing with Markia. She is amazing. She's like, great. This is making me just want to move, like head on over to LA. Like, somebody play with me.
I know. I wish
that's where all the cool people are. Not that there aren't cool people in Chicago. We're killing it over here.
Yeah. Who do I know in Chicago? Darcy Ross is in Chicago. Darcy Ross used to work for Monty Cook Games, and she is now working for Darrington Press, and she is awesome. She is a big positive force, a real like solid queer presence in the community. She is really cool as fuck. I highly recommend. I don't know that she's ever been on a show like an RPG show, but she's one of the more positive people.
Yeah, she would kill. We've got Darcy, we've got Latia, we got Cypher of Tyr.
That's right, Latia. I knew Cypher of Tyr was there. I forgot that Latia was in Chicago. Yeah.
Yeah, Latia's an old high school friend of mine, actually.
No way.
Yeah.
I was not when Darcy left MCG and Latia took over, that's when I first came to know Latia. And then she came out to LA with Critical Bard, and I got to meet them both in person finally. And it was great. Man, I wish. God damn it! I miss conventions so much. I miss meeting people.
It has been 0 episodes of this show since we have last mentioned Latia.
That's a good sign. That's a definitely good sign. Yeah, she's great.
It's usually just me talking smack about her.
Nice.
I also missed the convention season. I went to my first PAX Unplugged, and that was a revelation. And now I work for a gaming company, so I'm doing all the planning for Gen Con. Right. So like I'm
that's so cool.
Excited. Yeah.
I don't even see. You might be surprised. People are so shocked when they hear this. I have no ins to get into any Star Trek conventions, and I have no ins to getting into Gen Con. Like, I have none. Like,
how is that possible? Like,
it's true. It's
Let's
true.
Hook you
like,
up.
It's so true. Like, that's the disconnect. Like, people are like, "Are we going to see you at Star Trek Chicago?" Well, I mean, if there wasn't a panini, then probably yes. But I was like, no. Or can we see you at Star Trek Las Vegas? And I'm like, the only time I ever got to Star Trek Las Vegas was because Star Trek Online was kind enough to have us there, and that's it. And I was like. And Gen Con, like, I have an easier time getting into Comic Con than Gen Con. For some reason. When I worked at Geek and Sundry, it wasn't a problem at all. But, like, yeah, no. And after Geek and Sundry, it's like, who are you? Sorry?
Man.
It's true. It's
man,
like you just kind of fall off that platform.
I don't know how you not linked up with Modifius. I would figure that they would be on coattails, man.
I know.
Come on, Modifius, let's get it together.
Ironically, like we haven't had much of a relationship with Modifius since about early Clear Skies. For whatever reason, Star Trek Online was really supportive of the show, and we're doing what they could to support the show. And we did do the Day of Honor thing. Modifius has been really supportive of Eliza, which I deeply appreciate. They supported Blood of the Void, which was cool as fuck. And they're doing stuff with her now, but Streampunks, the greater Streampunks, we haven't really gotten a chance to really connect with those guys again, which is unfortunate. I'm big friends with Samantha, who's like, she's their developer over there, and she's great.
Maybe?
Like, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I love one wholesome man. Oh, Sam, I play weekly with Sam actually in the spy game that they wrote.
Oh, dude, yeah, and Sam. she was kind enough to ask me to come write for that. And let me just, I have to tip my hat to her because I was going through a complete freak out period when that was going on. It was post GNS. I didn't know what I was doing with my life. We were launching Clear Skies. I was so overwhelmed by everything. I was not the best writer. And she was so cool with me and just helping me along and like helping me find my groove. And I got to tell you, like, I just cannot say nice things about her. Like, she has just been one of the more positive, she's been my most positive experience I've had working for a publisher, and would love to do it again.
Heck yeah. Shout out to Follow Black Cats Gaming, because that's where Sam holds all her stuff. I missed out on a chance to write for their Captains of Cthulhu game. But it's I missed, this is going to make a lot of people shake their fists. I missed an opportunity. Modifius asked me to come write for the Shackleton Expanse source book, and I missed that opportunity. I couldn't do it. I was maxed out, and so I had to turn it down. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Like committing to like writing for something it's a beast.
I watch Jody fight that beast every day. Jody's like writing 5 comics at any given time. Like, what are you working on today, sweetie? Is it Doctor Who? Is it Star Wars? Like, what are you working on today?
Is it Harley
and
Quinn?
she's
I don't know how.
I don't know how she does it either. She's a machine. Like, she would come into the studio at Geek and Sundry, and she'd be sitting there writing Spider-Man, and then she'd go be on a show with Amy and Hector and everybody, and then she'd come back and go back to writing Spider-Man. Like, and then she'd take a break to go write Supergirl or something. Like, I would just be like, I don't know how you do that. I don't understand.
Like, I mean, especially because
on its own.
Yeah.
Especially because like you're working with licenses that have very loud fan bases.
Yes.
That's putting it mildly.
Jody is a woman in the comics industry.
Yeah, I mean, like the Count Dooku book was dope. I loved it. I'm trying to remember the other ones that I know are just like my comic reading has kind of been shaky ever since Comixology has been destroyed by Amazon. So. Yeah. Sorry, that's a whole nother rant that I'm not gonna get into.
Yeah.
But it's just like I couldn't imagine like writing for some of these franchises and stuff. It would.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. It's pretty wild. I admittedly, like, I fell off of steadily reading comics when Jim Lee was wrapping up his era of X-Men. That's how long ago it was. And then I read a couple of more after that and found ones that I loved. But I kind of fell off. Is she talking shit in chat right now?
Yeah.
Oh. Hey, it's Latia. Hey, Latia.
Well, Latia is always summoned after we talk about them.
Oh, yeah. We said the magical words and Latia shopped in. The Dooku is named after Jackson Lansing. Yeah, you can't see it here, but Jody, give me 1 second. She did this.
For it.
I'm laughing because I mispronounced it when I read it in the book.
Jody, she does this. Jody does these little things where people that she really cares about, she'll put into her comics. She'll like find a way to put them into her comics. And she named a nebula after me in her Doctor Who comic and gave me you can't see it because my blur effect, but like gave me this.
Oh, that's awesome.
Like, yeah, of this thing where she named a nebula. So like and I appear in Star Trek as well. I get mentioned in Star Trek with Jackson Lansing and Jody and all that. And I'm like, if you're not careful, Jody in that gang, they will find a way to put you into the lore. They'll slaughter your name and put you in the lore. It's really funny.
So I was laughing because, of course, coming back to the GIF thing, which apparently me and Jody are on the opposite side on. The character that I now understand is Jack Zid. When I read it, I pronounced it Jock.
Oh man, that's almost as good as Jackson's Brashley character. Man, Jackson in a Tin Candles game. Jackson, she forgives you. And Jackson Lansing was playing in a Tin Candles game that was run by our friend Revati Domse, and it was so funny because Revati is just such a beacon of light. Like, she would be more involved in TTRPGs if she wasn't, making shows at Nickelodeon right now. So she ran a Tin Candles game, but it was Tin Candles Bachelorette. And Jackson came to play, and he wanted to create the douchiest white bro he can make. So he created a guy named Brashley. And he was just like, which to this name, like, I'm the only one that's fixated on this. Like, nobody brings it up as often as I do, because I just think it's one of the greatest things ever. But halfway through the game, of course, in Tin Candles, everybody dies. When his character died, his character comes back in the narrative as Brashley the ghost. But the only thing that's changed, he becomes an evil version of Brashley. And the only thing that changed was when he came back on the stream, he was wearing a hat that just said beer on it. He just masterfully played the douchiest dude bro I've ever seen. And I'll never forget the name Brashley. But now that you've brought up Jockson, I'm like, oh man, that's right up there. I should start calling him Jockson. What's up, Jockson? Jockson Lansing.
I just love that when he dies, the only thing that changes is he gets a beer hat.
Yeah,
like,
I
that's
loved
all
it.
The afterlife is.
Yeah, it was just the only thing that's changed. Like, he's reached his final form. I love it.
We don't talk
My name
about
is
Brashley.
We don't. Brashley Jockson. I should just call him Brashley Jockson.
Brashley Jockson.
Hashtag Brashley live.
So I gotta know. So what other plans do we have for Stream Punks? Like, I know we're getting some Star Trek goodness in there.
Yeah.
What else is there?
So right now we're fulfilling a lifelong dream of mine of running a Changeling Chronicle, which has been a little tricky because Changeling is not. It's sort of it's pretty niche. Like, a lot of people don't know what Changeling is, and are not as familiar with the system. So it's been tricky. People always tell me all the time, it doesn't matter what you play, we just want to watch you play. To those fans, that's true. To the greater fan base, we've discovered it's not necessarily true, but it's also not necessarily false. It's sort of this weird thing. But my point is that people show up to watch Stream Punks play Star Trek, is what I've noticed. So there's definitely going to be a Star Trek game in the future, but we do have a wonderful, brilliant Changeling the Dreaming game on Monday nights called the Barony of Olives, which it's a lifelong dream, and I'm very happy about that. The big conversations we've been having recently internally is about me running a second campaign and possibly running a second game during the week or launching a new campaign. So we're having that discussion right now. Star Trek is definitely in the future, but we're talking, there's a lot of games I want to run. I desperately want to run an Aliens game because I feel like there is a way to tell an Aliens game that's not Doomy Dark Death Doom and doesn't have to be a meat grinder.
That
I want to
Alien RPG is very good too.
I'm a huge fan of Free League. Like, I've been jumping up and down about Free League.
Never played it.
I will run it for you any day of the week. Forbidden Lands is amazing. Like, I love Free League stuff. They just announced they're about to start their Blade Runner Kickstarter, which I'm super excited about. I'm a little hesitant because I'm wondering if they're going to fall into the Cyberpunk tropes, but we'll see.
And they're getting Nexus support, baby.
And they're getting Nexus support, which is huge because Forbidden Lands is going to be amazing on that thing. The One Ring, they just came out with that. It's gorgeous. It's a stunningly beautiful game. They did a good job with that. Anyway, sorry. So Barony of Olives on Monday, we're talking about doing another game, but we're also talking about the big goals that we have moving forward. So we are looking at tentatively, we are looking at holding a fundraiser. We last time we did this was 2 years ago, but we're going to hold a fundraiser next month. It's coming up next month. I haven't gotten permission from Sam and Eliza to announce the date yet. We do have a date, but I need to check with them. But it's going to be on the 14th, but I don't have permission to say it's going to be on the 14th. So don't.
So we didn't hear that it's.
I know. So we're looking at doing a fundraiser this coming month in May, and that is to sort of fund the next round, the next evolution of Stream Punks. We're hoping to launch a website eventually, get a merch store back up and going and stuff. But like, all of our stuff is pretty, like, we're a team of two, and no, we're a team of three, and Elise is producing for us and like really contributing to like the director, like producing for us and putting us on track. But Suffice to say, there's a lot of stuff in the fire right now that is getting cooked up, but we're in that period where we're not ready to announce exactly what's happening next, just that there is a lot of stuff coming down the pipe.
Chat heard no dates, so you're good.
Excellent, good, yeah. Yeah, because it could shift. We might get suddenly thrown a curveball and we still have, it might shift, but that's tentatively when we were thinking about doing it. But yeah, we're going to hold the fundraiser and ask some friends to come hang out with us and play with us, do a series of one-shots. The last time we held a fundraiser, it was to raise money to launch the LLC. Mm-hmm. And we set a goal that I thought was going to be a lot. We set a goal for $5,000. And by the end of the day, we had raised $15,000 from the community.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
And the mods were just like, told you so. I don't know if we're going to have that or not this time around, but we're hoping to have some show announcements when the fundraiser rolls around. We'll have to see, but that's the big thing that's happening for us right now is the fundraiser is kind of like where we reveal what our plans are for the coming year. So that's what I can announce right now.
So is this all going to be all in studio, or how are you doing the new content?
We are desperate to get back into the studio, but the truth is we're just not comfortable with where the panini is. We know that there are some people, like Pixel Circus is meeting up in person again. Critical Role has their own studio, so they have enough. They have been doing a brilliant job with their COVID protocols, so they're fine. Yeah. But we're small. We are the little guy. We are super small, and we do have a studio space thanks to Jake over at Q Times, but we're just not at a place right now. Some of us are immunocompromised, and we're just not at a place where it's safe for us to meet in person. So it's going to be remote play. It's not what we want. We're making it work. But our goal is to get back into studio. Like, we launched Clear Skies, and within 2 months we had to go remote, and we've been remote ever since.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so we're hoping one day when things chill the F out, we'll be able to get back into studio. But right now we're just not there, sadly.
You just need everybody to do their parts. Wear your goddamn masks.
Yeah.
Get your goddamn shots.
Yeah. Yeah, pretty much. So yeah, we're keeping tabs on that, but our goal is to get back into the studio. So things were looking up, but then, as always, there's new variants. Like every 3 minutes, there's a new.
Yeah, exactly. Because people won't get the goddamn shot and put on the goddamn mask. Anyway,
yeah,
I swear this panini is just it's exposed to a lot of stuff. But,
yeah.
But no, I'm super glad to. I'm excited to hear about the future of Stream Punks, especially apparently there might be an incentive. Like Jody, I can't talk, will be running a game. So hey, excited. Yeah. I'm excited to see this all come together.
Yeah.
So my next question, and this is kind of the one there where we start to wrap things up, which is, we're right now at the beginning of Stream Punks. Like this feels like we're very early on. And let's just say give yourself 2 years. Where would you like to see Stream Punks? Like where do you see this going?
That's a great question. That's been a question that's been coming up for me a lot, because when we initially launched this, for better or worse, my motivation was I don't want what we had at GNS to just fade into the ether. Like, I found a group of people that I really loved playing with, and I didn't want the changing of the change that happened at GNS. I didn't want that to be like the reason why I couldn't do this anymore. So I launched. Sam and I talked about it when we launched Stream Punks, and then we were lucky to have Elisa join us. When we launched it, the impetus behind it was so that we could keep going. But we never once asked ourselves, going where? We were just like, we just wanted to keep going. So the big questions that have been coming up lately for us have been, well, how long do you do this? And how long is it sustainable? And where can you go with this? Like, if you're just running shows every week, how long can you do that? Right. And those are big questions. One of the things that Stream Punks, it has been super rare that we have ever had a sponsor. And that is largely because, playing a lot of Star Trek, there's very few sponsors we could get for a thing like that. Yeah. Because Star Trek has its own dice, and we're playing Star Trek. Like, If it's not the publisher, who's sponsoring it? The big question so is like, where does this stuff go and where does it live and what do we do next? And frankly, I have no idea. I really don't. Like there's a part of me that personally as a GM, I see a lot of wisdom in what B. Dave did, which was B. Dave cast a huge wide net and just ran everything and kept promoting himself as a show host and a GM. And he made himself a brand, and now he's everywhere.
Yeah.
Dreampunks, we didn't have a grand ambition. We just didn't want to stop playing. So we do our games every month or every week, and we play. But we're kind of, aside from like show hosts and stuff like that who go off and do, like Gina's on multiple shows. She's on Pixel Circus, and Sam has done Power Play and is doing a bunch of other stuff. And I don't know where this goes beyond that. Me personally, I'm most closely tied to the fate of Streampunks because I don't really do anything except Streampunks.
Right.
Eliza and everybody, they all have other shows they're on. But as the GM of Streampunks, unless I'm GMing, what am I doing? And if I'm GMing something, it's obviously going to be Streampunks. And if I'm only doing it once a week, then that's it. So I'm not surprised you don't see me anywhere else. It's also
I feel that on the personal level as someone who runs a channel.
Right. And the unfortunate side effect of that is you're kind of pocketed. Like you're not doing anything. You're not getting out there.
Right.
No one knows you're running games anymore. Like you're not really putting yourself out. You're never going to see me on D&D Beyond. Like no one knows who the hell I am. And there's that.
I feel that I've been knocking on that door for like 2 years now.
Yeah. I'm like, hey, Amy, remember when I ran that game for you?
Let me in.
Let me in. Granny Wendy, let me in. Yeah. So there's a part of me that is like, well, I want to grow.
Right.
Do I grow as Eric or do I grow as Streampunks? And the thing that I've come to realize is like, really, I want to grow as Streampunks. Like I really want, I don't personally, I'm not excited about the idea of growing myself as a personal brand the way B. Dave does. I like the idea of being part of a brand that is a symbolic, like GNS. I loved doing that because it was symbolic of the community and things that we were doing. And I like being associated with Sam and Eliza. And I like that my fate is tied to what we do together because I love what we do together. Right. So the big thing is like the big Latia got the hook reference. Thank you, Latia. Whatever comes next, we're at a critical junction for ourselves right now because we're asking the big question: where do you go from here? And I think a large part of that is going to be determined. The fundraiser is going to be very informative, and what we do next is going to be very informative. And we're at a really interesting period where we're asking ourselves the very question you just asked us. Good question. Don't know.
I mean, I'm very excited for this fundraiser, and I think the answers that you're going to get are going to surprise you in a very good way. In the sense that, like, we are now at the point where the people that were inspired by Geek and Sundry are now at the point where they're meeting the people from Geek and Sundry in the space. It's just like right now, this is a meeting that is only happening because of something that you've done previously. If you didn't do the Star Trek show in Geek and Sundry, there's no critical misses. There's no more ritual. So I think that what you're gonna see is the appreciation from the people that are here now.
Jesus, you're gonna get me
only because of all you guys. Like, and I know that I'm not trying to sound mushy or anything. I truly believe that that's where it's gonna go. Like even as we speak, like I remember Latia talking to me about Geek and Sundry and me going, well, that sounds stupid.
That was my response about Critical Role. I'm like, who's gonna fucking watch people play D&D?
Yeah, I'm just gonna watch people play D&D instead. Yeah,
when I could be playing, like, why would I do that?
Get out of here with that. Nobody would, and now here we are. So,
yep.
So, like, I think you're going to be pleasantly surprised. And also, I know that I have one last question in the tank. I'll leave it to Anita after that. But I think one of the we've talked about your history, and it's been it's been just wonderful to hear about and inspiring, because like I'm we're still on the march to try and find out how we do our branding and exist in this space as well. Like I'm trying to take more of the B-Dave approach, and Anita here is doing more of like what you're doing with Streampunk. So like we've had these conversations too, where it's just like, maybe you should do more shows, and then then something major will happen for Critical Business, and I'm like, maybe I should shut the fuck up. I don't know what's happening. So
I'm just out here doing my best.
Yeah, so, I feel you.
So the question that I have is, what would you say is your greatest lesson from being in the midst of the downfall of Geek and Sundry? Like what is something that you learned where if you see it happening, like you're like, oh shit, it's time to get out the building?
Oh man. Ooh, that's a good question.
Are you saying what's the Titanic violinist playing on the deck of the ship? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Like, what song do you cue up as the
gentlemen? It's been an honor.
It's been an honor, yeah. Yeah, that's a great question. I had my heart shattered by departing Geek and Sundry. And it was on multiple levels, because leaving GNS was leaving a place where I finally felt like I had something to contribute. All the stuff that I'd said before. What was really harsh too, and I can't go into detail about it, but what was really harsh too is that I had been courted to join a brand new up and coming RPG studio. And it was a big studio, and I had been courted for months, and I thought I had something coming next, and that I wasn't going to have to leave any of this behind. And it never happened. It just never manifested. And the conversations just kind of stopped happening. And I was kind of left to myself to figure out what I was going to do. And suddenly I was on unemployment. And suddenly I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. Like, there was a moment where I was getting ready to just leave LA, and I was getting ready to leave and just not tell anybody I was going. Like, there was a part of me that at some point it reminded, there was a moment I was watching Netflix, and I was just in my little depression bubble, and I was watching comedians in cars drinking coffee, or whatever the hell that name of show that is. And Jerry Seinfeld said something that just brutalized me. He said, the difference between Las Vegas and Los Angeles is when you go bust in Las Vegas, you leave. And I was like, oh, I'm done. Like, I can't do this. I was so heartbroken and disappointed and feeling all sorts of stuff. And I was getting ready to leave, and lots of things changed. Lots of things fell into place that stopped me from doing that. Streampunks was one of them. Jody was another. There was a lot of things that really just started happening. And the lesson I learned, the time period after Geek and Sundry, mental health wise, I don't ever talk about this. There's a few times I've hinted at it with the community, but mental health wise, the period leading up to and after GNS was easily the darkest period I've had since I moved to LA when I was 20. Because I had found a place, and not only was it yanked out from underneath me, but then the aftermath was I wasn't invited to the cool kids table anymore. And it wasn't because I had done anything. It's because everyone else had their cool shit going on, and who was I? Yeah. And I know they didn't do that on purpose. Like, everyone's pursuing their own thing. Like, at the time I was really angry and bitter, and I was so upset and feeling betrayed by a lot of stuff. And it took me a long time to sit with that and to work through it. And thank God I did, because a lot of my friendships are preserved. Like, I'm still close with people that I felt really hurt by. And it's true that they're probably never going to fully understand how that happened or how it went down. But there's that great old saying that's always been misattributed to the Buddha. He never said this, but that old saying of holding on to anger is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. It's very similar to that. I had to work through that, and the biggest lessons that I have learned is that it is a tremendous act of courage to follow what it is you are passionate about, to, as Ray Bradbury said, jump and build your wings on the way down. It's gutsy and it's hard as fuck. And the number one thing that kept me through it, honestly, was sheer tenacity. It was just, I didn't want the monster to win.
Yeah.
And I kind of stuck with it. And my friends, especially Sam, had to endure a lot of me going through some pretty deep dives of, what the fuck am I doing here? Nobody likes me. Nobody's asking me to be on anything. I thought I had a thing. I thought we were friends. Like, all of this stuff. Going through a lot of it. Sam was there for me and listening to all of that all of the time. Jody had to be there for it too. Like, the number one thing that I have taken away, like coming out of the other side of that, what the biggest thing that I have learned was something that there's a very famous director on Broadway named Anne Bogart. She is a genius. She does some of the best writings and essays on theater and whatnot. And she has this quote that basically talks about, don't wait for the right conditions to do what it is you love. Don't wait until you have enough money. Don't wait until you have enough time. What you do right now determines the outcome of your future endeavors. Don't wait until there's a right condition. Work with whatever you have right now and make that meaningful. If I can be honest with you, that didn't finally click with me until I made the decision to run Changeling. Because at its heart, Changeling is screaming at us to do just that. The whole premise behind Changeling the Dreaming is to protect that inner child and to play. And the community and the things that play does to us. Because when you play, you're not locked in judgment. You're not wondering how silly you look. You're just playing. And that connection, focusing on that, it got me back to the roots of why I loved this in the first place. I got swept up in the fact that I was at GNS. I got swept up in the fact that all of a sudden I was getting stopped at Ralph's asking, hey, are you Eric from Geek and Sundry? Which was totally surreal as fuck. But in our signing at Gen Con, and even our cast was overwhelmed by the fact that people knew who we were. I didn't get swept up in the celebrity. I got swept up into thinking, oh, this is my life now. And there was the wake up call after Geek and Sundry came to an end was, nope. No, you are only what you are doing, I guess, it's what you're committed to. So the thing that I would tell everybody, and it's a lesson that we've heard time and time again through movies and chats, is that at the end of the day, no matter what arc you have, the wheel is always turning. Critical Role's on top now. It's not always going to be. And that's not even important. The point is that the only thing that's going to matter at the end of the day is doing what you love. And I know it sounds terrifying because it doesn't, you're going to think, well, like, I can't make a living doing that. That's just, I'm telling you, as somebody who fell into running games and does it for a living, it's just not true. Alan Watts was not joking when he said, don't go on doing things that you don't like doing. That is, go on living by doing things that you don't like doing. That's just ridiculous. I would just say that the big lessons that I have learned is that however counterintuitive it feels or however terrifying it feels, the simple answer is what you love is what's going to carry you through, and staying committed to it. Like Will Smith said in Pursuit of Happiness, you got to protect it. Yeah. You got to protect the dream. So that's my big takeaway. And that's what I learned after getting, taking an arrow to the knee after GNS.
I empathize completely. Like, this is to a much smaller scale, but like I had been invited to join a game that at the time was doing pretty well. And on the season that I was all signed up to join in, the channel went defunct.
Oh.
Like I had all the promo material in a Google Drive, and I was just like, "This is gonna be the thing."
Right. Yeah,
So
no, so what came next though?
Yeah, that's the thing. Is like the thing is, if I had joined this company, there would be no Stream Punks.
Yeah.
Like I think about that all the time. I'm like, if they asked me to come join them now, would I do it? I'd finally have job security. Would I do it? No, absolutely not. No, I am committing myself to a harder life. Yeah, no question. And it would be like, hey, maybe give me a shout out. That'd be nice. But the ultimate takeaway here is no, because what I am doing is harder, but I get to run my own live theater company, and there's just such a magic to that. And I don't know where this goes or what the future is. But worst case scenario, my girlfriend writes major comics. I'll just write her coattails. I'll just let her. She can be the breadwinner. I'll just run games for her and I'll serve her coffee and run her games, and I'll be her trophy husband, and she can.
Listen, there's nothing wrong with being a house spouse.
I don't have any problems with that. I don't have any problems with that at all.
And you want to start writing comic books so I can chill a little bit?
Yeah.
Oh man, this has been an amazing conversation that we've had here. We're gonna start to wind it down here. Anita, did you have any other questions? Because man,
no, I think that's like the perfect place to end this episode. I don't know where we go from there, but yes, Sweetie, full-time freelancer.
I know. She always reminds me of that. She's like, if you're looking for job security, I ain't the girl. I don't got that. I write 50 comics a day because I'm a freelancer. Yep.
Of the comic book industry. That's a whole nother conversation to have right there.
Yep.
Well,
that's been our episode.
Absolutely.
That's been our episode of Morning Ritual. Thank you all so much for hanging out with us and stopping by. I have been one of your hosts, Anita. You can find me here because this is my channel. You can also find me tomorrow over on Kira858 for a game called Amidst Light and Shadow, which is a D&D 5e game. And on Fridays, you can find me over on Gen Con TV for a little 5-part miniseries we're doing of Everyday Heroes. Other than that, you can also find me here again next Saturday for Morning Ritual, and our guest is going to be Marcus, who is the production lead for Gen Con TV.
Oh, sweet.
Oh, it's my turn now.
It's your turn. And then down here.
Hi, everybody. We've done this 50 plus times, and I still never get that right. I'm the other host, Noir. You can find everything that I do on Twitter. I am the community manager for Evil Genius Games. We've got our Kickstarter going live May 17th. So go to the Everyday Heroes Kickstarter page and follow it so that I look good in front of my boss, please. Thank you. And finally, we have our fantastic guest today. Go ahead and tell us about yourself and where we can find you.
Eric Campbell. I am the former director of development at Geek and Sundry, but I'm the new co-owner of Stream Punks Gaming Group. We're a bunch of Geek and Sundry alumni that run games over on Q Times Twitch, which is on Monday nights at 6 p.m. And then I'm also on Gary Con Live Gax Pack, which is on Sundays, which is a bunch of kooky kids that I love very much. And I think we're not back this week, but I think we're back next week. I'll have to double check about that. But that's usually at, I always get the time wrong. I think it's 1 p.m. my time, Pacific time. You're
better than me. I just don't say the times.
So I know. I'm so bad at it. But yeah, and then I'm at 16-Bit Eric across all socials from Twitter to Twitch. And I live stream Monday, Wednesday, and Friday mornings on my channel.
Hell yeah. Well, that has been our episode today. You know what? We've done so much talking about Sam. Why don't we go raid Sam?
We should raid Sam.
Absolutely.
We should raid Sam.
Raid!
We are going to go on a raid to the wonderful, the lovely thank you all so much.
Thanks for having me, you guys.
First off,
thanks for being here.
It's been amazing chatting with you. It's been an honor.
Anita's
been
looking forward to this one ever since you said yes.
Yeah.
I was like, all right, let's do it.
All right, everybody. Thank you all so much. We will see you on the next one. But until next time, the ritual has concluded. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.